So I always be careful whenever I'm about to cross in front of a truck.
I feel sorry for calling them wicked.
Wow, now I understand that when you know your neighbor's problem, it will be easier to understand them.
I'll be more careful when driving beside a truck, particularly when trying to overtake one.
Keep away from the truck's blind spot. We need space to keep you safe.
Àrùn jẹjẹ àrí nǹkan jẹ aṣáàdúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run pé Ọlọ́run ò jẹ́ kó wà fẹ́ ti ẹ̀mí wa.
This project itself is very unique. It's a tripartite partnership between the state, Lafarge PLC, and Unilever PLC. While Lafarge PLC took charge of the cost of the construction of the building, Unilever PLC picked up the bill for equipping this facility with all that is necessary for the care of those who may be using it. On behalf of the government and the people of the state, I wish to thank Lafarge PLC and Unilever PLC.
Once again, we have taken the bull by the horn, and I dare say, in time to address a global health issue that is threatening to sink our very existence. Today, we are commissioning an 80-bed isolation center here in Ogun State as part of our response and contribution aimed at supporting the efforts of the government to control and manage the spread of the coronavirus amongst our people. The project is an outcome of a partnership with one of Africa's largest building solutions conglomerates, Lafarge Africa PLC.
The new 80-bed facility in this isolation center will enhance the capacity to isolate and treat new cases of the new coronavirus infection and COVID-19. This is a strong strike to the pandemic because it contributes to the objective of breaking the chain of local transmission of the virus, limiting infection. This new isolation center takes us nearer to the goal of eliminating the coronavirus. It will assist our economy to enter a post-pandemic phase fully, thus boosting investment, productivity, and job creation.
Health and safety is a core value for Lafarge Africa PLC, and so in everything that we do, really, this is integrated. And just like we care for our employees and all the stakeholders within the areas where we operate, we're also very particular about our relationship with the government and the sort of impact that we can make on the communities where we operate.
We got ambulances from Lafarge, we got food and hygiene products from Unilever, and they did not stop that support at that stage. I want to really extend my appreciation to the management of Unilever and Lafarge.
The launch of this center is significant to us because it's a demonstration of how we are committed to building resilient communities. It also shows our demonstration to corporate citizenship as a good corporate citizen of Ogun State and Nigeria as a whole.
Because of the sustainability initiatives that we do, we've been working across the country in working with different states governments to help beef up the development in the healthcare delivery system.
We wanted to support the government of Ogun State in making sure that they had a facility that could take care of people who had COVID and as well take care of other types of ailments. And so this facility has a lot of purpose-built equipment in there. The CT scans, dialysis machine, a PCR machine for tests, and we increased the capacity of the hospital by twice its size by providing this 80-bed isolation center.
Unilever has a purpose to make sustainable living commonplace. We have been doing this for a while, and we invest in various activities and programs and initiatives to help make people and the planet a better place. So in partnership with Lafarge, we had reached out to the Ogun State government and we had put the isolation center in place.
Lafarge Africa, we're a member of the Wholesome Group, the world's leader in innovative and sustainable building solutions, and our focus is on building progress for people and the planet.
We are here to thank you for giving us back all those things that you have gained for us.
Today is a remarkable day for Ado-Ota local government and Ogun State in general. I want to say thank you.
By establishing this 80-bed isolation center, we are more than grateful, sir.
A dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Lafarge àti Unilever pé owó ṣe gudugudu méje ìyàyà mẹ́ta. A máa dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ wọn náà ni pé ọ̀run á ràn wọ́n lọ́wọ́. Ọlọ́run máa bùkún wọn, a dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ wọn.
For us as Lafarge, and what I see here today is another walking the talk. It all falls under the same umbrella for us, is how truly we are committed to our people, to our communities, to our environment, to our stakeholders.
For us in Lafarge Africa PLC, innovation is at the core of our strategy. It transcends all that we do. We have fully embraced innovation, not just as a concept, but as a way of life. So we're not just only selling product, we are selling a solution. So for us, it is to build a world that is greener, smarter, and that works for all. We've just launched LNG trucks. What this would do, it would reduce pollution, it will reduce carbon emission, it would take out costs, so maintenance costs would reduce.
The real goal behind the ideation was to deliver something that basically reduced our emission significantly. But as procurement and logistics people, obviously we also look at cost and we look at efficiency as well. It was critical to get the right partner to flow with so as to ensure the sustainability of the project.
So this initiative came out of the fact that we want to reduce our CO2 emissions when we transport our goods. If you look at the number of trucks that we started injecting, of course this will help to further deliver our products to our end users, of course in a sustainable and green manner. So for sure, from a business growth, we are increasing our capacity to deliver to our customers. This is the beginning, right, for us in this journey to green and transporting sustainably.
It is extremely impactful because with this technology, it is something that is quite available in most of the countries. So we are not awaiting a technology that is still under development, especially if we talk about hydrogen. So at industrial scales, that's truck that can be quite easily provided. The second thing is that when you need to fill those trucks, it doesn't require a high level of infrastructures implemented in the country.
Ecologic is partnering with Lafarge to reduce carbon emissions in the supply chain and ultimately improve the quality of life where Lafarge operates.
Regular motorists find it difficult on the highway to spot vehicles coming from behind them. For us truck drivers, things can get trickier. The truck has 4 blind spots, which makes it difficult for us to drive in certain circumstances. To demonstrate this, we are going to interview and invite road users to experience truck driving firsthand.
Ha! The truck drivers, they are always in a hurry.
Truck drivers, danger signals, very wicked souls.
They just want to bully us and damage our cars.
I don't think they are bad guys. They just have more difficulties than you and other road users think. Just come with me. I will show you something. So, what can you see from here?
My side is clear.
I can see the road clearly.
The side mirror says it's clear.
My side is clear.
Come and see.
What?
Now, can you just open the door and step aside?
Where did all these people come from?
Remove your seatbelt and rise up a bit.
Like,
as you can see, my friends, the truck driver has enough challenges of his own to deal with while on the road.
Sir, how do I know it is safe to cross the road when a truck is approaching?
The truck has 4 blind spots. So when you're close to the truck on a road, be aware that the truck driver may not likely see you when you're on his blind spots. Help the truck driver by being careful and mindful of his own limitations.
So I always be careful whenever I'm about to cross in front of a truck.
I feel sorry for calling them wicked.
Wow! Now I understand that when you know your neighbor's problem, it will be easier to understand them.
I'll be more careful when driving beside a truck, particularly when trying to overtake one.
Keep away from the truck's blind spot. We need space to keep you safe.
Adébáyọ̀ ó ṣe iṣẹ́ ọ̀kadà nígbà tí
COVID-19 yẹn wà àráyè ṣiṣẹ́. In fact ó wà fẹ́ tiwa gan o.
Àrùn jẹjẹ àárín kankan jẹ aṣáàdúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run pé Ọlọ́run ò jẹ́ kó wà fẹ́ tẹ̀mí wa.
And Unilever PLC. While Lafarge PLC took charge of the maybe using it, on behalf of the government and the people of Ogun State, I wish to thank Lafarge PLC and Unilever PLC.
Once again, we have taken the bull by the horn, and I dare say, in time to address a global health issue that is threatening to sink our very existence. Today, we are commissioning an 80-bed isolation center here in Ogun State as part of our response and contribution aimed at supporting the efforts of the government to control and manage the spread of the coronavirus amongst our people. The project is an outcome of a partnership with one of Africa's largest building solutions conglomerates, Lafarge Africa PLC.
The new 80-bed facility in this isolation center will enhance the capacity to isolate and treat new cases of the new coronavirus infection and COVID-19. This is a strong strike to the pandemic because it contributes to the objective of breaking the chain of local transmission of the virus, limiting infection. This new isolation center takes us nearer to the goal of eliminating the coronavirus. It will assist our economy to enter a post-pandemic phase fully, thus boosting investment, productivity, and job creation.
Health and safety is a core value for Lafarge Africa PLC, and so in everything that we do, really, this is integrated. And just like we care for our employees and all the stakeholders within the areas where we operate, we're also very particular about our relationship with the government and the sort of impact that we can make on the communities where we operate.
We got ambulances from Lafarge, we got food and hygiene products from Unilever, and they did not stop that support at that stage. I want to really extend my appreciation to the management of Unilever and Lafarge.
The launch of this center is significant to us because it's a demonstration of how we are committed to building resilient communities. It also shows our demonstration to corporate citizenship as a good corporate citizen of Ogun State and Nigeria as a whole.
Because of the sustainability initiatives that we do, we've been working across the country in working with different states governments to help beef up the development in the healthcare delivery system.
We wanted to support the government of Ogun State in making sure that they had a facility that could take care of people who had COVID and as well take care of other types of ailments. And so this facility has a lot of purpose-built equipment in there, the CT scans, dialysis machine, a PCR machine for tests, and we increased the capacity of the hospital by twice its size by providing this 80-bed isolation center.
Unilever has a purpose to make sustainable living commonplace. We have been doing this for a while, and we invest in various activities and programs and initiatives to help make people and the planet a better place. So in partnership with Lafarge, we had reached out to the Ogun State government and we had put the isolation center in place.
Lafarge Africa, we're a member of the Wholesome Group, the world's leader in innovative and sustainable building solutions, and our focus is on building progress for people and the planet.
We are here to thank you for giving us back all those things that you have gained for us.
Today is a remarkable day for Ado-Ota local government and Ogun State in general. I want to say thank you.
By establishing this 80-bed isolation center, we are more than grateful, sir.
Adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Lafarge àti Unilever pé owó ṣe gudugudu méje ìyàrá mẹ́ta. A máa dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ wọn náà ni pé ọ̀hún á ràn wọ́n lọ́wọ́.
Ọlọ́run máa bùkún wọn, a dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ wọn.
for us as Lafarge. And what I see here today is another walking the talk. It all falls under the same umbrella for us, is how truly we are committed to our people, to our communities, to our environment, to our stakeholders.
For us in Lafarge Africa PLC, innovation is at the core of our strategy. It transcends all that we do. We have fully embraced innovation, not just as a concept, but as a way of life. So we're not just only selling product, we are selling a solution. So for us, it is to build a world that is greener, smarter, and that works for all. We've just launched LNG trucks. What this would do, it would reduce pollution, it will reduce carbon emission, it would take out costs, so maintenance costs would be reduced.
The real goal behind the ideation was to deliver something that basically reduced our emission significantly. But as procurement and logistics people, obviously, we also look at cost and we look at efficiency as well. It was critical to get the right partner to flow with so as to ensure the sustainability of the project.
So this initiative came out of the fact that we want to reduce our CO2 emissions when we transport our goods. If you look at the number of trucks that we started injecting, of course, this will help to further deliver our products to our end users, of course, in a sustainable and green manner. So for sure, from a business growth, we are increasing our capacity to deliver to our customers. This is the beginning, right, for us in this journey to green and transporting sustainably.
It is extremely impactful because with this technology, it is something that is quite available in most of the countries. So we are not awaiting a technology that is still under development, especially if we talk about hydrogen. So at industrial scales, that's trucks that can be quite easily provided. The second thing is that when you need to fill those trucks, it doesn't require a high level of infrastructures implemented in the country.
Ecologic is partnering with Lafarge to reduce carbon emissions in the supply chain and ultimately improve the quality of life where Lafarge operates.
Regular motorists finds it difficult on the highway to spot vehicles coming from behind them. For us truck drivers, things can get trickier. The truck has 4 blind spots, which makes it difficult for us to drive in certain circumstances. To demonstrate this, we are going to interview and invite road users to experience truck driving firsthand.
Ha! The truck drivers, they are always in a hurry.
Truck drivers, danger signals, very wicked souls.
They just want to bully us and damage our cars.
I don't think they are bad guys. They just have more difficulties than you and other road users think. Just come with me. I will show you something. So, what can you see from here?
My side is clear.
I can see the road clearly.
The side mirror says it's clear.
My side is clear.
Come and see.
What?
Now, can you just open the door and step aside?
Where did all these people come from?
Remove your seatbelt and rise up a bit. As you can see, my friends, the truck driver has enough challenges of his own to deal with while on the road.
Sir, how do I know it is safe to cross the road when a truck is approaching?
The truck has 4 blind spots. So when you're close to the truck on a road, be aware that the truck driver may not likely see you when you're on his blind spots. Help the truck driver by being careful and mindful of his own limitations.
So I always be careful whenever I'm about to cross in front of a truck.
I feel sorry for calling them wicked.
Wow. Now I understand that when you know your neighbor's problem, it will be easier to understand them.
I'll be more careful when driving beside a truck, particularly when trying to overtake one.
Keep away from the truck's blind spot. We need space to keep you safe.
Lafarge Adébáyọ̀ ó ṣe iṣẹ́ ọ̀kadà nígbà tí pọ́pùlẹ́tì yẹn wà àráyè ṣiṣẹ́. In fact ó wà fẹ́ ti wá gan o.
Àrùn jẹjẹ àrí nǹkan kan jẹ aṣáàdúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run pé Ọlọ́run ò jẹ́ kó wà fẹ́ ti ẹ̀mí wa.
This project itself is very unique. It's a tripartite partnership between the state, Lafarge PLC, and Unilever PLC. While Lafarge PLC took charge of the cost of the construction of the building, Unilever PLC picked up the bill for equipping this facility with all that is necessary for the care of those who may be using it. On behalf of the government and the people of the state, I wish to thank Lafarge PLC and Unilever PLC.
Once again, we have taken the bull by the horn, and I dare say, in time to address a global health issue that is threatening to sink our very existence. Today, we are commissioning an 80-bed isolation center here in Ogun State as part of our response and contribution aimed at supporting the efforts of the government to control and manage the spread of the coronavirus amongst our people. The project is an outcome of a partnership with one of Africa's largest building solutions conglomerates, Lafarge Africa PLC.
The new 80-bed facility in this isolation center will enhance the capacity to isolate and treat new cases of the new coronavirus infection and COVID-19. This is a strong strike to the pandemic because it contributes to the objective of breaking the chain of local transmission of the virus limiting infection. This new isolation center takes us nearer to the goal of eliminating the coronavirus. It will assist our economy to enter a post-pandemic phase fully, thus boosting investment, productivity, and job creation.
Health and safety is a core value for Lafarge Africa PLC. And so in everything that we do, really, this is integrated. And just like we care for our employees and all the stakeholders within the areas where we operate, we're also very particular about our relationship with the government and the sort of impact that we can make on the communities where we operate.
We got ambulances from Lafarge, we got food and hygiene products from Unilever, and they did not stop that support at that stage. I want to really extend my appreciation to the management of Unilever and Lafarge.
The launch of this center is significant to us because it's a demonstration of how we are committed to building resilient communities. It also shows our demonstration to corporate citizenship as a good corporate citizen of Ogun State and Nigeria as a whole.
Because of the sustainability initiatives that we do, we've been working across the country in working with different states governments to help beef up the development in the healthcare delivery system.
We wanted to support the government of Ogun State in making sure that they had a facility that could take care of people who had COVID and as well take care of other types of ailments. And so this facility has a lot of purpose-built equipment in there. The CT scans, dialysis machine, a PCR machine for tests. And we increased the capacity of the hospital by twice its size by providing this 80-bed isolation center.
Unilever has a purpose to make sustainable living commonplace. We have been doing this for a while and we invest in.
Thank you so much for coming, sir. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We would like to sing the national anthem. May I ask that we please rise as we sing the national anthem? Thank you. You may please sit. Please allow me to observe due protocol by acknowledging the presence of Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the Executive Governor of Lagos State, who is represented by Dr. Kadri Obafemi Hamzat, the Deputy Governor of Lagos State. A round of applause for him, please. Also like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Khalid El Dakanis, Country CEO, Lafarge Africa PLC, the Honorable Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development, TPL, Dr. Idris Salako, Engineer Ramide Adeyoye, Special Advisor, Works and Infrastructure to the Governor of Lagos State, the General Manager, Lagos State Building Control Agency, Mr. Gbolaran Oki, the General Manager, Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority, TPL, Kehinde Oshinaike, ably represented by TPL Mrs. Busola Olatunji, Architect Enyi Ben Ebo, President Nigerian Institute of Architects, Mrs. Sadiya Aliyu, MD CEO Urban Shelter Limited, Mr. Femi Yusuf, Head Motor Innovation and New Product at Lafarge Africa, Mr. Gbenga Onimowo, Commercial Director at Lafarge, Mr. Gbemiga Wolabi, O and HR Director, other EXCO member present, our distinguished panelists, gentlemen and women of the press, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to say thank you so much for joining us. You are warmly welcome. Let's give ourselves a round of applause, please. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, you're welcome to Concrete Ideas 5.0, organized by Lafarge Africa. My name is Temi Badru, and I'm the host for today. I'd like to welcome everyone who is joining us here physically, as well as our virtual audience. We understand that people are joining us from different parts of the world, so would like to warmly welcome you. Now, as an icebreaker, I'd like us to look to our left or to our right and say hello and welcome to someone sitting by our side. So you can just turn to your left and make someone feel welcome by saying hello. And when you've done that, you can turn to the other side and say hello as well. Thank you. Now, to our virtual audience, we don't want you to be left out. You are a part of this conversation. So please, in the chat room, on Zoom, or wherever you're joining in from, please write hello in the chat room and let us know where you are joining in from. So we'd like to keep the conversation engaged as we go on. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we are all aware, Concrete Idea is Lafarge Africa's flagship. Thank you. As we're all aware, Concrete Ideas is Lafarge Africa's flagship knowledge sharing platform for engaging the public and private sector stakeholders in Nigeria. And its focus is improved construction management and policy innovations that boost the standard, safety, and affordability of housing and infrastructure. The inaugural edition put the spotlight on public and private sector partnership approaches to rapidly upscale the Nigerian economic infrastructure. Then we moved ahead to the second edition. We moved on to discuss addressing the root cause of building collapse in Nigeria. Afterwards, we had the third edition where we focused on new solutions for Nigeria's urban housing. And just at the most recent edition, the fourth edition, we discussed PPPs in urban regeneration, global best practices, Nigeria opportunities. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, you would agree with me that all the previous editions have been fruitful because key recommendations from all the editions have been implemented. And on that note, I believe Lafarge Africa deserves a round of applause. So please let's give it up for Lafarge Africa and for all the stakeholders that have contributed to the past discourse. And so I encourage you to visit the microsite, concreteideas.com.ng, and also our website, lafarge.com.ng, to understand more about the journey so far. Now this morning, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are set to have fruitful conversations on the theme, building up safely, government-industry collaboration. And we look forward to recommendations that would again influence policies. We are confident that our contributions today, our conversations, will be fruitful again. And you might like to join us online because, you know, the world is digital. And we want to take the conversations beyond this gathering to other places. So please, use the hashtag ConcreteIdeas5 when you share updates about this event. Also use the hashtag LafargeAfrica. Now, to join conversations online, please follow Lafarge Africa on all social media platforms. So please follow us at Lafarge Africa on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at Lafarge Africa. In the course of this event, there will be a panel discussions, and we know that questions will arise. And so we'd like you to engage with us, ask us your questions virtually. Please visit slido.com and input the digits, which will be projected on the screen, hashtag 6745503. Or you can just scan the QR code so that you get an opportunity to understand, to ask the questions rather. So please engage with us, use the social media handles, use the hashtag, and ask questions on Slido. It's time for housekeeping and safety talk because Lafarge Africa prioritizes safety. On this note, I'd like to invite Mr. Hassan to come up quickly for the safety talk. A round of applause for Mr. Hassan, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Excellency, you are welcome to Eko Hotel and Suite. You are welcome. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hassan Ganiu from the Eko Hotel Security Department. The name of the hall we are is called Jasmine Hall in Eko Convention Center. with 2 exit points in case of emergency, which we didn't pray for. We don't have any fire drilling today. If you have a fire alarm ring once, ignore it. If it continues ringing, please use one of the exit points to the muster point. We have one of our muster points in front of signature, and behind this building, there is another muster point there. Our security is there to give the directive. Our restroom from the main entrance you come through, just go straight, check your right hand, is located there. Thank you again. Welcome to Eko Hotel and Suites. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to acknowledge Engineer Ade Akinsoya, the Commissioner for Works in Ogun State. A round of applause for him, please. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for the opening remarks, and I'm honored to make welcome the CEO of Lafarge Africa, Khalid El Dokani, for his opening remarks. Let's give him a round of applause as he makes his way to the stage, please.
Good morning, Your Excellency. Good morning to everyone. The Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, represented by the Deputy Governor, Dr. Kadri Opafemi Hamzat. Honorable Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development, Engineer Aramadi Adidio, Special Advisor, Works and Infrastructure to the Governor of Lagos State. General Manager, Lagos State Building Control Agency, Mr. Gobalan Oki. General Manager, Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority, TPL, Kennedy Osiniki, Aptly, represented by TBL, Mrs. Busula Olatundi. Architect Eni Beni Ebo, President, Nigeria Institute of Architects. Mrs. Sadia Aliyu, MD CEO, Urban Shelter Limited. Mr. Femi Yusuf, Head Mortar, Innovation and New Products. Mr. Benga Onomi, Commercial Director, Lafarge Africa. Mr. Bemiga Olubali, ONHR Director. Other EXCO members present, our distinguished panelists, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, invited guests by virtual. On behalf of our chairman, Prince Adeyo, our board, and our management, we are so glad to have you here today. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to the 5th edition of our quarterly policy series, Concrete Ideas. Before I begin, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to His Excellency Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Executive Governor of Lagos State, represented by Dr. Kadri Opafemi Hamzat, Deputy Governor of Lagos State, and all the thought leaders here present who are professionals and policy experts. Thank you all for the keen interest in the participation. Your Excellency, on behalf of the management and the staff of Lafarge Africa, I commend you and your cabinet for the infrastructure development that the state has witnessed since you assumed the office. This no doubt has continued to foster economic development and stimulate prosperity in the state. I'm glad to note that your administration has continued to play an active role in promoting ideas towards improving the build and the construction sector in Nigeria. Your continuous review and update to the existing laws on urban and regional planning and development is a pure attestation to this fact. Policy formation should not be reactive, and we should be more proactive in setting the rules and the guidelines for continuous improvement in our infrastructure and building models. The development of high-rise buildings in a current trend in modern cities all over the world. This is mainly to overcome the challenges of urban overpopulation and for the optimal use of scarce land resources. It can also serve as a state symbol, a tourist attraction, and beautiful skylines. It is, however, a wonder that the concept of vertical cities is not growing at a significant rate compared to the horizontal growth of buildings. This low rate will continue to hit the housing in Nigeria and urban cities development. The theme for today's session, building up safely. Government-industry collaboration explores how high-rise buildings could be a solution to the challenges around the scarcity and high cost of accommodation in urban centers in Nigeria. This, we believe, could be a spur of investment in the construction and real estate in the country. These public-private dialogues have, of course, been on for the past 2 years and have demonstrably been effective in bringing about sustainable and positive change in the sector. We have discussed public-private partnerships and rapidly upscaling Nigeria's economic infrastructure, the root cause of building collapse, new solutions to Nigeria urban housing and public-private partnerships in urban regeneration, and highlighted very rich recommendations and resolutions from these discussions. However, we believe there is still more that can be done, and I'm very optimistic that the suggestions and recommendations from today's plenary would be found useful in further enriching policies and regulatory capacity, as well as effectiveness and efficiency in the sector. Your Excellency, being the special guest of honor of this edition of Concrete Ideas, reflects your commitment to working with the private sector to further boost the growth of the sector, and therefore seek your support in transforming these ideas into concrete solutions that will be beneficial to the nation. Once again, I thank you all, thought leaders, the participants, as well as everyone has helped in one way or another to put this event together. I look forward to the rich deliberation and discussion that will start. By now, it's with great pleasure that I invite the Deputy Governor of Lagos, His Excellency Dr. Obafemi Hamzat, to give his keynotes. Please, sir.
Good morning. Please, let's be seated. Thank you very much. I was thinking that Ms. Badru will do that, so you caught me a bit unaware. So, the Chief Executive of Lafarge Africa PLC, Mr. Khalid Al-Dokani, thank you very much for inviting us and for this great platform. The Honorary Commissioner for Fiscal Planning and Urban Development, Dr. Idris Alako, thank you very much for being here. Special Advisor to the Governor on Works and Infrastructure, Engineer Mrs. Aramide Adeyoye. The Honorary Commissioner for Works
Ogun State, Engineer Ade Akinsoya. We loan him to Ogun State, so that's why they keep looking at him. So hopefully you are taking care of Ogun State. Thank you very much. The General Manager, Lagos State Building Control Agency, Mr. Gbolahon Oki. General Manager, Lagos State Fiscal Planning Permit Authority, Mr. Kehinde Oshinaike, represented by Town Planner Busola Olatunji. The Captain of Industry and great Lagosians, Nigerians that are here, stakeholders in the build sector, discussants, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everyone. Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm delighted to be part of this discussion and to be associated with Lafarge Group while being part of these innovative discussions geared toward attaining sustainable change, continuous improvement, and commercial success within Nigeria's construction, infrastructure, and housing sector. I think it's important that we commend Lafarge for this platform that they've created. And I think the quality product that the group also has been building over the time has translated into a significant growth of the construction and housing space. It has increased, of course, economic activities and development, and of course led to growth of our national GDP. Most importantly, it has led to creation of jobs for some of our youths. In Lagos State, we are also embarking on building a greater and stronger Lagos. And the strong buildings that are being built with Lafarge cement, of course, must contribute to the beauty and the aesthetic of our states and our collective desire to keep up building a greater Lagos. As the MC has stated during our introduction, I think this platform has been on for about 5 years, and that it's worth of emulation, because when companies continue to find means of getting better, engaging stakeholders in the build industry, what you have is not limiting yourself to what you have done, but expanding the horizon and seeing how you can get better. So the Lafarge Africa Concrete ideas, as for the past 5 years, remain a relevant and vibrant platform for deliberation on issues, policies, and development shaping the Nigerian's construction and housing space. I'm particularly pleased with this year's theme, Building Up Safely, Government-Industry Collaborations, because it is very opposite and it is very close to home for us in Lagos and, of course, in Nigeria. We are all working assiduously and determined to sustainably address the issue of this avoidable building collapse so that we can safeguard lives of our people and prevent economic and financial loss. As we all know, housing and building in a safe way is not just a Lagos issue or no Nigerian issue or even African problem. It's a challenge that many nations have faced at some points in their national history. Yesterday, I think we were watching television and saw what happened in Colombia. So building collapse, stadia collapse, all sorts happens based on what we use to build all these structures. Building safety is first and best guaranteed before the process of building itself and construction commences. It begins with safe and standard building plans, quality building materials, and adherence to proposed plans and structure. So the question that citizens usually ask is, we as government, have we done all the checks and balances that are necessary? Well, the honest truth is that we have processes in place to make sure that we answer these questions. However, there are citizens and people that really always want to cut corners, but our job is to prevent them from having their way so that we don't put people's life in jeopardy years down the line. Our resolve as a government has been to more intentionally and vocally sensitize our people, builders, on the importance of seeking the input of professionals in engineering, building, planning, and architecture, even before embarking on the building of any structure in our state. So the Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority and the Lagos State Building Control Agency, LAFSCA, have also taken up the responsibility of being very swift, alert, and responsive in ensuring that physical planning permits, laws, and building policies are strictly adhered to, with the monitoring and compliance unit of these agencies now at the top of their game to ensure that even before building begins, the structural plan, the materials to be used, and every other necessary things meet the standard requirement. But we must go further. We must go further. How many people actually know that before you buy that flat, the developer must show you the certificate of cohabitation, the certificate of completion? So it's okay to just buy these nice designs on paper, but there must be a certificate from the Ministry of Physical Planning that says, yes, this building is fit for. So we've broken our approval into two phases. When you are building, and then we monitor. That's when LAFSCA come in. They monitor to make sure you are building according to compliance and according to the approval that you've gotten. When you finish, you also must get a certificate of completion and that this building is good for habitation. So I think we need to go out there and let citizens and those buyers also know. Also, professionals who work on construction sites need to be properly certified, because whether we like it or not, the primary responsibility of adhering to those standards remain with those professionals. As a proactive government, we are even open to ideas and initiatives that are targeted at improving the living standards of Lagosians and quality of building being put up in our state for habitation. I assure all the players in the construction, infrastructure, building, and housing sector that we are ready to welcome all ideas brought by you that are aimed at promoting construction of safe buildings in our state. Lagos State has already mapped out ways to make building industry and generally the landed economy in our state become more viable and compliant with the demand of a smart city and the 21st century economy. I implore you all to work closely with us and also to initiate ideas that will help us achieve our desired goals faster. I look forward to receiving the communique of all the workable solutions and collaborative ideas that will emanate from today's discussions. Let us remember that for us to build a state of our intent, building must be safe and lives must be protected. We are determined to do that, and fiscal planning has been very aggressive in doing it. In fact, part of the biggest challenge that I have as a person is people calling me to say, come and stop fiscal planning. About 3 days ago, I think I called you. A friend called me and said, they are demolishing my building on Banana Road. He said, I never received anything, no letter, nothing. So I called the commissioner. It turned out that he received a letter in January that you must stop, that the check shows that your building is not secure. So I said, Egbon, you received this letter now. They just sent it to me on WhatsApp. It was signed by this person. I said, well, we don't audit your staff. If your staff did not show you, there's nothing we can do. So even as citizens, let us please try to comply. It's for the best for all of us, and it's the right thing for us to do so that we can have a sustainable state and a great country. Thank you very much. I thank you for listening.
Mr. Governor, we have a few questions for you, sir. Thank you very much. Once again, can we please put our hands together as he please takes his seat for a very, very short fireside chat. Thank you very much. First of all, we must say thank you very much for honoring our invite. Please, you may take your seat. Thank you very much. So we are honored here to be speaking with Dr. Kadiri Obafemi Hamzat, who is the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, standing in here for the Executive Governor of Lagos State. And so much work has been done. You've highlighted the work that the government has done in ensuring that we secure, the lives of Nigerians. I mean, that last story that you shared about demolition, it was very, very important. Uncomfortable, but very important. But we have a few questions here, sir. It's generally accepted fact that one of the greatest challenges facing most governments today is the provision of housing, both in quantity and quality. As a government that has done so much in the area of infrastructure development, how has your administration been able to keep up the tempo of interventions in this area?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. So I think it's important to lay a background. So for Lagos, it's a bit difficult for us to manage it because people keep coming to Lagos at alarming rate from all parts of the country. But if you look at literature, it's clear that in Africa, especially the western part of Africa, or the central part of Africa, on the average, they say it takes about 17 years for people to build a house, on the average. Some rich people can do it in 1 year, but on the average, 17 years. So what that means is that we are procuring houses like we procure bread and rice. So it shouldn't be. And that's why other parts of the world, they have mortgages. Because housing are not things that you can just go and buy as if you want to buy rice or yam or plantain in the market. That's why Lagos State set up the Lagos Homes. That's homes without E, H-O-M-S. Housing, Home Ownership Mortgage Scheme. Lagos Home Ownership Mortgage Scheme. And that's why we are building those flats. We build flat of one, it's a block of 12 flats. On each floor there'll be 1, 2, 3 bedroom, so that you can have a mix of people. It's also to arrange society. And then we give mortgage so that you can pay in 10 years. You pay 200, whatever, depending on your salary. So all you just need to do. So the idea for us in Lagos, we just hope this can be done nationally, is that we must have a mortgage scheme. We are young people just getting married out of university, or you are a mechanic but you have income, can actually pay over a period of time. Because one of the challenges that we have is that people forget a lot of other things. People stop paying the children's school fees because they want to quickly build a house. People don't pay health insurance because they want to quickly build a house. And as such, you have a mismatch in the society itself. So if you change your education, the education of your children, because you're building a house quickly, you just want to quickly do 1, 2 bedroom, it's a mismatch. So for us, it's more than just saying, oh, we just want to start building house. It's about managing the prosperity of our society. And therefore, that's why we created that. It's working, but we need to expand it. Unfortunately, like I said, well, Lagos is a magnet, and everybody keeps coming. So it has to be national. If it's national, if it's done every part of the country, then it creates a system whereby people can actually plan, because they know that, okay, I'm paying 150 naira or 80 naira, whatever it is every month for my 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom apartment. And as such, that's what we are doing. And you can see that we've commissioned close to 4,000 flats within the space of 3 years, so that people can have access to these houses, and they don't have where they are first-time buyers. So if you have a house already, you are not qualified. So it must be people that are new in the market, and then they can. And in most cases, like I said, welders have come in. As long as you have you can show us that you have a bank account and you have income, and therefore, and it's been ongoing, and that's what we are doing.
I think that's really brilliant. Lagos State is doing great work in this regard. I think the Lagos Home Ownership Mortgage Scheme is a very brilliant idea, having commissioned about 4,000 flats. Now let's talk about some of the challenges that the government has experienced in ensuring that these flats are made accessible to Nigerians. We do applaud the fact that, you're considering the fact that anybody can have a property so long as you can show that you have income coming in. What would you say has been the biggest challenge? You also did mention that Lagos State is a hub where everybody wants to come to. We have an ever-increasing population, so that certainly stands as one challenge. But what would you say are some of the other challenges that the government has experienced in ensuring that Lagos Home is accessible to many Lagosians?
Well, I think the biggest challenge initially are artisans. So a lot of artisans actually have income, but it's not regularized, sort of. And so you have to now teach people how to say, okay, find a way to say, this is how much I make. Bookkeeping, sort of. So you are a mechanic, you have a mechanic shop, but you make money. But it's not the same every day. So today is 10 naira, tomorrow is this naira. So how do you now create a bookkeeping scheme so that people understand your cash flow? So that was the initial challenge for people who don't have direct or full employment in terms of regularized civil service or private sector. But for people that are in private sector and public sector, it wasn't a challenge. So you know your income, you know what you make, and therefore you can now be, and said, okay, because your rent must not be more than 30% or so. Well, that's a law, ILO law, So we try to encourage people again to make sure that, well, you can pay your house rent, but you must also be able to pay your child's health, whatever, or that at least you must be able to do other things with your life. So basically, those are the challenge, convincing people that, look, this must be sort of regulated in this way. But over time now, I think our mortgage board has been excellent. We brought people in, we brought Nigerians that have done this around the world. And we brought them into Lagos to say, come and do it in your country. And they've been able to sensitize people and be able to make sure that people understand that this is important. And so our challenge now is to cope with the number of housing requests. That's the challenge now because, of course, housing takes some time to build. And what we do is we sort of evaluate people, and when the houses are ready, we just keep the biggest challenge is you have people who have a lot of money that wants to buy a lot, and we said no. So that's the biggest challenge. But for us, it's not it's very easy for us to say no. It's for these young people that are coming in.
And thank you very much for saying no, because we young people want to own properties as well. Now let's talk about the theme for today. We're looking at building up safely government-industry collaborations. And one of the mindsets by which this theme came up from is because we look at the fact that one thing is that land is very expensive. We can all agree that land is very expensive. But one way in which we can make the best of the challenges that comes with owning a property is building up. Around the world, in countries in Europe, we see that they're building skyscrapers. More people are embracing building up, which leads me to our next question. With the continuous increase in the population of Lagos leading to an ever-increasing surge in rural-urban drift, land scarcity and the consequent high cost of available land can only be expected to increase. Bearing in mind that the development of tall buildings is the current trend in modern cities all over the world, what do you think should be done to create greater awareness and encourage industry stakeholders to take advantage of these opportunities?
Well, I think for us in Lagos, I'm sure a lot of developers are already engaging in that, really. So the biggest challenge is, again, when we talk about restructuring our country, that's what we mean. So I will give you a very small example. So there is this agency that is called UBEC. So UBEC is an agency of the federal government that assists states with primary education. And so they also assist government to say, oh, for 2021 as an example, we will contribute X amount of naira so that you can do various things in your primary school. But the state must also put in a counterpart fund of the same amount. But the challenge is this. They will now say, oh, everybody must build a two classroom on the floor. We said this is Lagos. Niger State is 7.8% of the landmass of Nigeria. We are 0.34. So giving us the same template as Niger is ridiculous. So we've been fighting this for years. But fortunately, they've agreed with us, and that's why our schools will go up. But in other parts of the country, you see that they are all flat because everybody accepts that. So those are the challenges that we in Lagos have seen over time. about restructuring this country to say, let us as a people do what is appropriate for each state. What is good for Lagos might not be good for Niger. What is good for Niger and so on. So that's a diversion. But basically, we've been going up over time. Like you said, when we started the homes design, for example, that's why we went up. Again, but we also understand that maintenance is key, because for each building, you have a facility manager, or for each estate. And you don't want to burden them too much. So that's why we said, okay, because of the, let's get to 4 floors. So because anything above 5, you need an elevator. So let's build so that we don't allow people to spend too much money on maintenance and so on. So, but for the developers, you can see all over the state, everybody is going up. They know that the best thing to do is to go up, because land is, like you said, it's expensive. But it's expensive only in the parts that you are interested in. If you want to go to my part of Lagos, like Igodo, we are fine.
If you decide to give us land, then we will still take it, sir.
Yeah, well, so if you come out, let's go to Igodo, let's go to Egon, let's go to, we are fine. But all of you on this side, well, it's okay.
All right, so let's talk about another challenge. Now, the increasing population of Lagos underscores the need for increased investment in infrastructure development to build a strong economic baseline, with the status of Lagos as Africa's fastest growing megacity. Despite the shortfall in revenue and receipts from the Federation account, how has your government been able to maintain the flow of investment into these critical sectors of the economy?
Well, I think we must give it to the governor of the state. I mean, we are so people say that our blue line takes time. That's the line that goes from Marina to Kokomaiko. It started during the government of Babatunde Fashola. And we know that it's expensive. The water crossing from Orile to Marina, which is about 13 or so kilometers, the pile there is about 113 meters. Now, this building is, Engineer Amide, how tall is this? Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 9 meters. So the pile is 113 meters down. So you can imagine, and there is hundreds of them. So, and you don't see it. So it's just down. So it's the engineers that will see it. So it costs a lot of money, because these are infrastructure that must last 300-400 years or whatever it is. But we know that for Lagos, we are the only mega city in the world that doesn't have rail. And we are also the only mega city, or the only city in the world that is funding rail on our own balance sheet. Every other city in the world has federal government funding, municipal funding, and of course the city funding. So we are the only, so when people say, oh, it's taking forever, well, it will take forever, because it's only the state of Lagos that is funding it. In other jurisdictions, London Rail, Cairo Rail, it's federal government. So the people talk about Addis Ababa. Addis Ababa Rail was 100% federal government, not state. So we are the only state in the world that is funding that on our balance sheet. So how are we surviving? We are trying to use all sorts of creative funding, like the Red Line, for example. We've almost built, I think we have about 17 stations. Federal government will build about 7, because we are using the same line that goes to Ibadan. So, but going to Ibadan will take maybe 4 hours before it comes back. But our interrail, you can do almost 10 rounds before they come back. So it's an alignment that and we are building. If you go to Marina now, we are almost completed with the station. It's about 300 meters in terms of length. And you can see Ikeja, it's almost done. You can see Mushi all over the place. So one of the things we did was we have to borrow, because money is fungible. And what you can buy today, interestingly, let me say this, if we did not do those stations then, the cost of about 105 billion, today you can't build it for 300 billion. Today you cannot. We can't even go near it. Because as you know, diesel then was whatever it is, it's 800 naira now. Steel then was whatever it is, cement and so on. So Lafarge cement is not what it was 2 years ago. So the reality is, because we know money is fungible, we must then say, let's go and get that resources so that we can build. It's called constructive debt. So when people say that, oh, the borrowing, well, what are you doing with it? We are building infrastructure that our grandchildren can use, so that the only way to move Lagos is we must develop our rail system. It's the only way. We cannot build. Sarah Mede here is building all the roads. Fantastic, well done. I clap for her. But the reality is, we must also develop the rail and the water transportation, which we are doing. So it's creative funding that we are seeking to make sure that we build our rail, we build the road. So I think yesterday we even approved something, the Okwebi-Mende Link Bridge, that takes us from, if you are coming from, what's that? Okwebi, Sheraton. Normally now you turn around to go to Okwebi. So that bridge will take you all the way down. So you don't have to go around again. So JB is doing it. They are doing the piling now. It's a lot of money because this is Lagos. So, but we must find those resources because it's the only way we can expand our state. It's the only way we can build the necessary infrastructure. So we are trying to be audacious to build all these things. But that's why we must find means of getting the money somehow. And then we are finding it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And the money must indeed come out, because we recognize that 80% of the global GDP is made, from the cities, and making these cities more livable is a very key factor in ensuring that we make lives better, not just for the citizens, but for the economy at large. So thank you very much, Mr. Governor, for joining us. It's been an honor speaking with you. My name is Olive Emodi. The event continues in a moment, but can we please put our hands together for Mr. Governor? That was a very fantastic conversation, and well done to Lagos. We just have photographs for you, sir, and right after that you can go. But we have, we'd like to welcome the CEO of Lafarge PLC on stage for photographs, and Temi Badru will take it over from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Olive. I would also like to invite the CEO of Lafarge Africa, Khalid El-Dokani. He'll be joined by the Commercial Director, Benga Onimowo, for pictures with the Deputy Governor. I would also like to invite the special guests who are sitting on the front row, so please step forward for pictures. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Your Excellency. Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. At the risk of sounding like Oliver Twist, can we please ask, humbly request, that you have a tour of the exhibition booth just at the right-hand side of the hall, and you'll be joined by the Commercial Director, Benga Onimowo. Thank you very much. While His Excellency takes a tour of the exhibition booth, the rest of us will be watching the tour virtually on the screen. So please, let's sit back and enjoy the virtual tour. Now, to our virtual audience, you're not left out. As His Excellency tours the exhibition booth, you also get a chance to get a sense of what's happening over there, as it will be projected on your screens. Thank you.
even in the east. But Lagos alone, because people say, oh yeah, you know, you have water, so a lot of people will start with the 42.5 grade. But for the other part of the building, the 32.5 is just right. And we've also, from our innovations, we now have stuff for finishing. This is for tile adhesive, Superfix. So to have a good finishing for your housing projects. Yeah. And of course, also, we have the ready-mix concrete cement. You know, we also have the ready-mix concrete business, which is already prepared, mixed concrete, just especially now you're talking about the high-rise especially. We can't start mixing bags and taking it up there. So we have that to pump it straight in. It gives consistency and good quality. And I think that's the way to go right now. So this is a range of products, and Lafarge will continue to make sure we meet the demand of end users, and we continue to innovate and continue to bring in better quality products that will serve the purpose.
So how many bags of cement do you put every year?
We produce every
year. Oh, yeah. Well, I think yes.
Yes, I mean, for us, we have a capacity over 10 million tons capacity, yes, from our 3 plants, about 4 plants, yeah, cement.
That's exclusively for Nigeria?
For Nigeria. For Nigeria. Yeah, but in terms of carbon emission, I mean, that's also something that is very, yeah, no, for us, it's also something very important. We're actually working on green products, yes, and we're trying to certify. We actually, today, I think we have some green product. We just want to make sure we certify and begin to actually talk about it. So it's something that we're big on.
Yeah, and actually we started even beyond the level of producing cement, because we are probably the best company in using alternative fuels. We have substituted 30% of our gas and diesel exactly by using waste, and this is one thing that really helped the decarbonization and lowering the CO2 emission. So.
Interesting. Well done, well done, well done.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Yes.
The Italians used to dominate the market for tile glues, but the last 4 years, I think they started this, and I think that has reduced cost of tiling.
Very good. Instead of bringing it in.
Yes, yeah. Yes. The Marazis, a lot of the foreign tiles, they always specify their own glues, but this is good. Excuse me, sir. Thank you, sir.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Mr. Governor. Thank you very much for the tour. Permit me to stand on existing protocol and welcome you to Concrete Ideas 5.0 panel session. Can you please put your hands together for Lafarge? Thank you. My name is Olive Emodi, and I am honored to be your moderator for this panel session. Now, ever since its inception in October 2020, Concrete Ideas has become that platform that enables us engage in critical conversation, looking at the challenges that are plaguing the built environment, construction, real estate, but not just to look at these problems, to prefer solutions as well. We've had 4 editions before this. The 4 editions were virtual, and this is our first hybrid edition. Now, it's important to thank you very much. That deserves a round of applause. Thank you. Now, it's important to mention that the key takeaway and recommendation from this platform is being implemented in day-to-day policy. It's not just talking. We are actually walking the talk, and I'll give you examples. The Council for Regulation of Engineering, COREN, did mandate that a manual was built by professionals in the built environment, and that this was to measure up to the Nigeria industry for cement, and basically talking about how to combat the building collapse. These were recommendations taken from the second session. Also from the first session, we had recommendations that were taken from there, and the Federal Ministry for Works and Housing implemented HDMI, that's the Highway Development Management Initiative, to ensure that, you know, we invite the private sector into the infrastructure growth. So best believe that all the conversation that will be happening today will be implemented. The key recommendations will be implemented. Now, I'm going to be welcoming the key stakeholders. We have the thought leaders, the biggest thought leaders, the brightest thought leaders in Nigeria, who will be joining us for this conversation this day. So please permit me, as I invite them, you put your hands together for them. I'll confirm if we do have some time, we might be reading their profile. If not, we'll proceed. All right. Please put your hands together as I welcome to join me on stage Engineer Aramide Adeoye, Special Advisor to the Governor on Works and Infrastructure. Thank you very much for joining us, Ma. We look forward to having a very in-depth conversation with you in a moment. Can we please put our hands together for her once again? She's a COREN registered nurse, a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Nigerian Institute of Civil Engineers, Nigerian Institute of Building. And there's so much work that she's done in the building space. Thank you very much, Ma. Please take your seats. Thank you. Now, also joining me on this platform, can we please put our hands together as I warmly welcome the General Manager, Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority, LASPA, Kehinde Oshinaike. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us, ma'am. Thank you very much for the great work that you're doing as well. Now, joining us, we have architect Enyi Ben Ebo, who is the president of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. Can we please put our hands together for him as he joins us on the panel? Thank you very much. And we also have the acting chairman, Purple, Mrs. Olajumoke Akiwumi, who will be joining me. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. We also have the MD CEO, Urban Shelter Limited, Sadia Aliu, who will be joining us in a moment. Thank you very much. Can we please put our hands together for her as she joins us? And finally, we have Femi Yusuf, who is the head Motor Innovation and New Product Development, Lafarge Africa PLC. Can we please put our hands together for him as he joins us? Thank you very much, sir. And also, we have some people who will be joining us. They're not going to be seated on the panel, but of course, they are very much a part of this conversation, and I'll be asking them questions as well. So can we please put our hands together as we specially recognize the presence of the Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development, Dr. Idris Alaka. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. And we also have the presence of the General Manager, Lagos State Building Control Agency, LASCA, Architect Bolahon Owoduni. Okay, thank you very much, sir. All right, if you will permit me to start off the conversation by saying thank you very much for giving us of your time and joining us. I'll quickly mention that we have here joining us Mrs. Olubusola Busola Olatunji, standing in. Thank you so much for joining us, Ma. All right, we'll be asking a few questions, and I will, of course, start with Architect Eni Ben Ebo, the president of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. Thank you very much once again for joining us. Let's talk about the role of architectural design. What role would you say architectural design can play in reconciling the economics of high-rise buildings to concerns about safety, whilst we're talking about high-rise buildings as a solution to not just expensive rent, but the lack of availability of land? We're looking at how we can marry beautiful architecture to that. So what are your thoughts on this, sir?
All right, thank you very much. I'd also want to use this opportunity to commend Lafarge for this beautiful corporate responsibility initiative, and I think it's quite something that as an institute we commend. Now, you talked about the issue of high-rise buildings vis-a-vis the need to accommodate more people in terms of the housing deficit that we have in the country today. Well, they say necessity is the mother of invention, and as the city of Lagos grows, there's also the need for it to be able to accommodate the number of people that come into Lagos to work and live on almost a daily basis. Of course, it's not news that Lagos State is the state in Nigeria with the highest population and probably the smallest land area. So it's become something that's more of a necessity for Lagos to look at vertical rather than horizontal development of buildings. But then this alternative to go for vertical solutions, for building solutions, has its own challenges. Number one has to do with the fact that the higher you go, the more technical it becomes, and that's probably why Lagos has the notorious record as being the city with the highest amount of building collapses. Because once you go beyond one floor, you need very, very seasoned and professional people to be able to manage the issues that go with high-rise buildings. Even by definition, what do we refer to as high-rise? Depending on what part of the world you are, high-rise could mean different things. In Nigeria, I think the tallest building in Nigeria is not more than 30-something floors, whereas if you are in Tokyo or any of these capitals of major countries in the world, you have buildings above 60 floors and people are living in those buildings. So for the Nigerian situation, we would want to look at anything above maybe 10 floors as a high-rise. And so far, in terms of housing delivery, I think apart from areas in the Ikoyi axis, Ikoyi Victoria Island axis, not much of this type of buildings exists in other parts of Lagos and even other parts of the world. But the challenges that come with high-rise buildings are myriad. Number one, you need very, very seasoned and professional people to carry it out, because even in terms of the substructure, which is something that is responsible for the stability of the building, you need very, very experienced engineers to do that. The deputy governor told us that to just do a bridge across the lagoon, you have piles going as far as 100 meters. That's quite a lot. That's like 30 floors, if not more, 30 or more, 33 floors into the water that nobody sees. For a lot of these high-rise buildings, the same applies to their foundations, and that requires a lot of technical skill. But once you get out of the ground, it also has a lot of its challenges. Challenges in terms of design, challenges in terms of the socio-economic implications, because of course, when you go high, you need an elevator to take you to those heights. Our power situation in Nigeria is not really the best in the world, so you have to have standby alternatives when you're going high-rise. That also increases the cost of the buildings. Then as you go higher too, you have to look at such things as fire safety, because fire is perhaps the great, apart from the structural stability, fire is one of the greatest dangers when you're going high rise. You all heard of the Grenfell Tower in London, that just a small electrical problem led to a fire that consumed more than 70 lives in a city that is supposed to have all the standards. How much less here in Nigeria, where a lot of those standards are not adhered to. So in terms of the design, our codes make provisions for fire escapes. They make provision at the design stage for compartmentalization, such that if there's a fire in one region of the building, it can be shut out from spreading to the other parts of the building. Then, of course, the choice of materials is also something that's very important. What led to the spread of a fire in the case of the Grenfell Tower was that the external cladding was a material that was easily combustible, and so a fire on one floor quickly spread to the rest of the floors, and of course, the consequences are quite catastrophic. So in terms of the design, architects take into consideration the fact that there must be adequate provision for escape. There must be adequate provision for prevention of the spread of fire once it has started in a particular area. Then, of course, in terms of the choice of materials, in terms of firefighting provisions, because once there's a fire, the building must be able to react to the fire almost spontaneously, such that before the fire service comes, at least the building must be able to have things like sprinklers, things like fire hydrants and all of that. And the people must also be trained in the art of being able to, once there's a fire, to know what to do, because most times people die out of stampede and not because of the consequences of the fire. But lastly, there's the issue of coordination between the various arms of government that have to do with regulations. I know there's been this, the fire service, for instance, visits some sites and they try to enforce certain things. Whereas if we had a one-stop shop where everything about the building approval is domiciled, such that if my building is approved for everything that needs to be taken care of in that building, that helps a lot of prospective developers to ensure that their buildings don't get harassed after they've sought approval by different agencies of government to come and say they want to check one other thing or the other.
Thank you very much. It's very well put. Can we please put our hands together for him? And I'm really hoping that notes are being taken, especially with regards to our architects in ensuring our safety. Now let's talk. You did mention something about building collapse. You made reference to building collapse. But before I proceed to the next question, I'll be asking, the question is for Mrs. Olubusola Olatunji. I'd like to mention to our online audience, please be a part of the conversation. Check the top right corner of your screen. We have the question and answer bar. If you'd like to drop questions, please drop your questions there. I'll take some questions from our online audience. And also, if you'd like to direct your question to a specific panelist, feel free to do that as well. We would also be sharing a Slido link at some point to project it, and then you can put your questions there. Now, you did mention, architect mentioned something about building collapse and made reference to the collapses. In fact, we have had some unfortunate collapses here. And I'll be speaking with Mrs. Olubusola Olatunji, the Head Physical Planning, Research and Statistics Department of Lagos. You're standing here for Mr. Kehinde Oshinaike, the General Manager, Lagos State Physical Planning Permit. Now let's talk about building collapse. Despite having required permits, buildings have continued to collapse across the country. Do you think that there is a need to review some of these criteria before issuing a permit? And do you also think that permits should be reviewable after the first issuance? I do know that when Mr. Governor was giving his speech, he made reference to something like that. So give us a background into the issuance of permits and what you would say are some of the causes of the building collapse.
Okay, thank you very much. Happy to be here today. Now, you asked a question on building collapse, that despite the fact that there are buildings that have planning permits, there's still collapse happening. That's because building collapse is not directly linked to planning permits, a building having a planning permit, or it has no planning permit. Now, despite the effort of the state government, in trying to curb the different things that the state government has done in trying to curb building collapse. We have seen that levels of implementation of this planning permit, once it's granted, is what the issue is. Now, if someone has a planning permit, and at the time when the building is supposed to be constructed, if there's no proper supervision by professionals that are supposed to be there, there's likelihood that there will be wrong mix of, materials for building, and then there'll be likelihood of collapse happening. Also, we'll look at issues of building materials in the market also. There are some low-quality materials that are in the market that once they are used, but what we are seeing as a solution to this is proper monitoring. Once there's proper monitoring, now, Lagos State Fiscal Planning Permit and Lagos State Building Control Agency, just like Mr. Deputy Governor said, has been going out to ensure that there's increase in enforcement and compliance. So they go to sites to ensure that, okay, a site has a planning permit for development, actually, but is the building being constructed in line with what was actually approved in the first instance? Now, developers like cutting corners. They want to maximize, for economic reasons, they want to maximize profit and then spread beyond the buildable area and what was actually approved. And then they try to also cut corners in terms of material mix. So what the agency is doing is continuous auditing of project areas and even existing development. We'll go out for monitoring to ensure that, okay, the planning permit issued in the first instance is actually complied to the latter. And then once we see that, okay, it has the planning permit and it has complied, then, what building control agency does, after a planning permit has been issued, there's a handshake at some point. We give them a copy of the planning permit that has been issued on the structure that is going to be developed. And then they go to site. But before they go to site, there must be a letter of intent to commence construction from the developer. And so the developer, they will go to the site with the developer and then carry out stage management of the structures. That means from the foundation of development to when the completion is done. There will be stage management. They will carry out they will ensure that everything that has to be done is done on the site, in terms of construction, in terms of safety, in terms of everything, planning parameters there. The LASPA agent, the Lagos State Fiscal Planning Permit, does its own monitoring to ensure that site, and then Building Construction Agency also ensures that there is safety maintained in what was approved and what is being constructed on site. So it is not, building permits are just papers, ideas, proposals that someone has brought forth that, okay, this is what I want to do. And then the relevant authority, the relevant professionals in the authority look through those papers, the working architectural drawings, the electrical drawings, the mechanical drawings, the structural drawings, all the working drawings. They look at them and see that, okay, these drawings are okay, and then they approve them on paper. But we know, you and I know, that buildings don't collapse on paper. We know that.
Absolutely.
So when it has been approved, onus is still on the regulatory agency to follow up on what is being constructed on site to ensure that they are keeping to what was approved on site.
All right.
That will limit the essence of collapse that we're having.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Now, I'll be asking the next question to the SA, to the Governor on Works and Infrastructure, Engineer Aramide Adeoye. I had asked something similar to Mr. Deputy Governor when he was with me, so I'll pose the same question to you. As the Special Advisor to the Governor on Works and Infrastructure, what do you think can be done to further harness the many advantages that high-rise buildings offer in the state? And what other steps do you think we can take to combat the many problems militating against mass development and optimal use of high-rise building in the country?
Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, I think my speaker is not working, so my voice.
Okay, we can hear you.
Yeah, it's fine. It's okay. Morning, everyone, and thank you for having me on this panelist session. To Mrs. Lafarge, good opportunity, and I think this discourse is good for everyone. The ideas that come out here, I've seen some of your series from as far back as 2010. They are very good, and I see even the president of COBA and the past president of NIOB here. Engineer Yunuga, past president of NSC, have added to this. I'm hoping that at the end of this session today, the things that will come out here would actually be good opportunity for us to move forward in the area of building collapse. So straight to the question, this administration is very keen on infrastructural renewal. One of the things that I tell people is infrastructure provision is a catalyzer for growth. Once you do that and you do it efficiently well, you'll find the private sector coming. I recollect in 2008, when the Bodilon Road was being done. You just need to provide infrastructure. The private sector would collaborate with you and move in. That was the catalyzer for growth. That was the development of the high-rise regime along Ikoyi axis. And we've done similarly in so many areas. So for us as a state, we looked at it and said, as part of our team's agenda in the transportation in the T sector, that would provide, we'll do urban renewal, and that saw us going to areas like Ikoyi. It was deliberate. We did the first award for 4 roads, and we upgraded those 4 roads, finished and completed, on McDonald, on McPherson, on Randall, on Latif Jakonde. And those roads are finished on Thompson. Before the road was completed, you could actually see developers already moving and started working. Because of the success that we had there, we then also awarded 3 other new roads. In Oiko Abayomi, in McPherson, in Milverton, and then, of course, the other recent road that we're doing. So even the Public Works Corporation, we've also rehabilitated roads like Reeve Road as well as Onilegbale, all at various stages of completion. That's on the Ikoyi axis. We did similar things to also areas around Ikeja. And in Ikeja, they've also taken advantage. You've seen hotels begin to spring up on the main Oduduwa Way and Oduduwa. That speaks to the power of infrastructural provision. Once you do that, because what do you need? A high-rise you need accessibility to a good building. There must be enough duct services. We're doing the smart fiber, so you need to also have all of those things working so that you can do plug and play most of the things that you do. So we've done in Ikeja, we've done in Ikoyi, we've also done in areas like Alakpere, Ketu. And then we did something on the Lagos Island, and that's where I'm going. Lagos Island is witnessing the second wave of urban renewal. The first urban renewal was done in 2005. And we did Adeni-Jadele Road, the episode of Adeni-Jadele Road, back all the way down to Elegbata area, about 70 roads in Lagos Island Road, then in 2005. So CBD, so we then had the Central Business District spring up. So you saw a lot of developments around there. Union Bank, the likes of Union Bank took advantage, had most of their construction work done then. Lagos Island is going through the second wave of development now. And I'm praying and hoping that the private sector will use this opportunity to collaborate with us. So we're going back now. We're doing Adeni-Jadele Road, we're doing Okepopo and Tapa. The question is, are the private sector going to collaborate with the state government now so that what we've seen happen in areas like Ikoyi, in Ikeja, in Demuri, in Alakpere, and all of those areas will begin to happen on the island? I think for me, that's the greatest thing. So as a government, we've started it. That's the only way to harness all of this build up vertically by providing infrastructure. That we've already started doing, and we're doing massively well, and I know that we're making good success out of it.
Thank you very much, and well done to Lagos State Government for the great work that's been done. I'll just piggyback on what you said and follow up with a next question real quick. You talked about Lagos State and wanting the private sector to collaborate because we're seeing a second wave of urban development. Now, my next question to you would be, seeing as we're having a conversation about building up safely, how can we have the private sector, in what capacity would you want the private sector to collaborate with the government?
Oh, thank you. So once I said, you have a lot of JVs. Housing, the deputy governor said it clearly, government cannot, we started it, but we know we cannot provide enough homes for everybody. So you can get the private sector collaborate with us in areas of provision of buildings. So the question is, what class of buildings now? And then you can segment the strata of the society that they want to actually cater for. But what is important is they come up with plans. They can say, well, we want to develop this area and we need the government to be able to access the land. Give us this amount of land, you provide infrastructure, and then we'll then begin to do something. So like a site and services scheme. You can say, government, you take this portion and you build houses for maybe 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom to take up for the needs of the middle class or the lower class, while we take this expanse and then take care of the high end of the strata in the society. That way you begin to reintegrate the society, people begin to live collaboratively together, you end up not living the strata of the haves and the haves not. So it's a way of a social reintegration of the society back. At the same time, the private sector begins to collaborate also to provide that infrastructure swifter and faster. We all know government cannot do everything by itself. But by doing that, I think that brings development faster.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for explaining the way in which the private sector can collaborate. And I'm sure that there are people who are in here in the audience, as well as many who are watching online, that will take advantage of this opportunity that the government has talked about. My next question would be to the acting chairman, Purple, Mrs. Olajumoke Akinwumi. Okay. From your experience in building edifices that stand the test of time, can you give us insights into how this can be achieved? That is, building edifices that will stand the test of time, because our conversation today is about building up safely. So share from your wealth of experience.
Okay, thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. And thanks for the opportunity to share this platform with such a great team. When we talk about buildings that start the test of time, I think we have to start from the perspective that we are creating an environment. I mean, as an architect, I am an architect. As an architect, we are known to be the sculptors of the built environment. You don't create a sculpture and then the next day you go back and knock it down. So we have to think life cycles. So it's not enough for us to, and it's not just about buildings, it's also about the environment that we create, including the infrastructure that we create. So if we premise the concept of designing and building for the future, we think a little bit more long term. So that the appreciation for a building's life cycle means that, you know, we start from the perspective of planning. I always say that the time it takes to plan is far longer in many cases than the time it takes to implement. It's just that what we see is the implementation. But planning for us has to go beyond what I used to think was the best thing to do. You know, careful about selection of materials, how the building will interact with the environment and with the people who will occupy it. You start to think about even life cycle costs and so on. These days, planning has stepped back a little bit and is asking questions about what are the sources of the materials that we're using to build? How are those materials made? You know, the same way that we talk about in the fast-moving goods sector, we talk about fair trade, and people are asking questions about where does the cocoa come from? And, you know, are the farmers underage children? And is this organically grown? And so on and so forth. The same thing is starting to happen in the built environment. And the reason for that is because even investors are asking questions that were generally not considered before now. So planning is thinking backward to look forward. Then there's also obviously the construction phase, which is the place where a lot of people get interested, because that's when we start to see what is going on. And there are a lot of issues that are associated with this process that we who are participants in that environment need to start to address. Everybody knows the statistics. The construction industry is the greatest polluter after oil and gas. I mean, that's one of the first things we hear when we go into any meetings where sustainability is being discussed. So individually and collectively, and even on the scale of government, what are the things that we need to do to control and to manage the impact of construction in our environment. One of the many things that we notice is happening now is that building construction is starting to become more and more a manufacturing process. And there are many reasons for that. The obvious one, of course, is quality. A lot of people say, you know, you're building in a controlled environment, better quality. There's speed as well, but also there are environmental considerations. I mean, in a controlled environment, it is clear that the outcomes and the impact on the environment is far better managed. I was reading an article recently where a Chinese company, and I think there have been several of those, built I think it was a 10-story building in 29 hours. So, I mean, clearly they didn't call themselves a construction company, they called themselves a manufacturing company. So all the components are done and then there was an assemblage on site. There's a huge difference between that and the activities of the typical construction process, which has a far greater impact on the environment. So going past construction and onto operations and maintenance, so you have people who are daily interacting with buildings. How do people interact with these buildings? The services that are being provided, there's air conditioning, there's heating, there's all kinds of things going on, everything contributing to green gas emissions in our environment. I think COVID also taught us a little lesson. Now we talk about healthy buildings. Whoever thought that one would consider a building healthy or not? But that has also become a very important thing to consider. And post all of that, we now get to a place, and for example, the city of Lagos is getting to a place now where there are neighborhoods where really regeneration needs to take place. So what do? Is it demolition and disposal? Or is it reuse and recycle? Those are conversations that huge neighborhoods, that there has to be consideration for these things. Again, the other thing that we find happening these days is that these same buildings that are modular are also demountable. We start to think about buildings in a slightly different way. We have to start to think about adaptability and flexibility. And when uses change, what do we do with the building? Does that mean that we demolish, or is it possible to modify? Those are issues that have come to the fore over the past few years, because we now need to think more about life cycle issues in the built environment. I think also environmental responsibility is critical. So we talk about water and power. There was an article in the papers recently about the quality of water from boreholes across Lagos being extremely poor and unsafe for human consumption.
Yes.
Well, truly, we really shouldn't be digging boreholes. We know that. There should be a responsibility for water and for water distribution, for the management of water, because also water is a resource that needs to be managed the same way that every other resource needs to be managed.
Absolutely.
So that intelligent approach to energy and water resources, to minimizing waste. One of the biggest issues in the built environment is managing waste. On a typical construction site, the amount of waste that's generated, I know we don't like talking about it because our quantity surveyors make sure that they make the allowance for the waste when the bill of quantities is being done. But that waste ends up somewhere, and often the waste does not degrade. So there by itself is a huge challenge.
Now permit me to interject slightly there. I really like the fact that you're emphasizing the importance of, how we must consider the environment. It's what even the United Nations talking about it, when we look at the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 11 talks about making cities and human settlements more inclusive, resilient, safe, and sustainable. So this is a very important conversation we are having, and I'm glad that at the core of everything that Lafarge does, Lafarge strategy is all about sustainability. So I'd like to bring in Femi Yusuf in on this conversation. He is certainly the head of Mortar and he's the head Mortar Innovation and New Product Lafarge Africa PLC, and I'd like him to talk to us about some of the things that Lafarge has put into place to guarantee safety. You know, we know that Lafarge is all about sustainability. They signed Zero Net, if I'm correct, and a lot of their inventions, or a lot of the ways in which they produce, is to ensure that the safety of the environment is brought to the fore. So I'm going to ask you two questions in one. Talk to us about this, you know, the safety, the sustainability, that's core of Lafarge's strategy. Talk to us about how you achieve that, as well as what are some of the products that Lafarge has in place to help with the achievement of these high-rise buildings that we're talking about.
Thank you for the question. I think you've asked 3 questions in one, so I'm a bit...
Okay, so talk to us about sustainability, and then after that, I'd ask you the next one about Lafarge's products for high-rise buildings.
Okay, I think that's a safer way to start. So sustainability is a 360-degree process. The whole concept of sustainability is how you manage your processes and resources today for the future generation. And that is absolutely key. 20, 30 years ago, all industries were producing, were manufacturing because we had the materials. But as population continues to grow, we suddenly woke up one morning and realized that, look, there won't be enough for the future generation. So if you take it from that concept, you realize that the construction industry as a whole has to look at everything from production to the product and to its usage. So at the production level, you have to think of the amount of energy that you use to make your product. Yes, manufacturing cement is energy intensive because you need an absolutely huge amount of heat in the kiln to bake the cement very well. That is the nature of making cement. But as an advanced construction company, we've taken our time to look at how we can reduce the evolution of that heat. So year in, year out, with very strict controls and targets to say, how do we continue to reduce the amount of fossil fuel that we use to generate that heat? And I think globally, we will rank among the top 2 companies that have actually, we have technology that has allowed us to do that via biomass. We're now looking very strongly at, we use gas. We're also now looking very strongly at solar and all other kinds of energy you can get. And there's a strict target to that, and we are getting very, very close. And that has a calculation to how green our product is. Now, when you move into the product, that is a big space. Because in the product itself, when you now have a product that you can qualify as green, how does that, when I take it from what the architect said, how does that impact the green nature of your construction? So when you do the calculation of the energy emitted by the building, a large chunk of it comes from cement and concrete. So immediately you have a green product going into that, you have reduced that impact. And then when you now move into the reusable aspect of the building, which is also a big part, a lot of demolition is happening in Lagos today because you have buildings that are derelict, you have buildings that have exceeded their lifespan, you have buildings that were not built and they were not safe even from the beginning. We can reuse those the rubble from those demolished buildings back into making concrete. So that's the whole life cycle. And when you begin to see how this circle continues, the impact on the environment reduces, the health of the people living in a house. So we are one of the first companies to say we have a cement that you can call green. And if you live in that kind of a building, you feel more healthy. And so that's the answer to sustainability from Lafarge Africa point of view.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think Lafarge Africa deserves a round of applause, being top 2 and ensuring that they are providing cement that is very, very healthy and conscious of the environment. And the second question I had asked you earlier, I talked about some of the products that the organization has developed? We're talking about building up. But what are some of the products that that Lafarge Africa has that can meet those needs for building up?
Yes. With what we've done over the past 10, 15 years as Lafarge Africa, we've covered the entire building space when it comes to multi-stories. The Honorable Deputy Governor was saying that you have some terminals where you have to have a pipe going as deep as 130 meters, 140 meters. You cannot do that with the normal concrete that you produce on site. So you need a company or an organization that can produce that type of concrete. At that depth, you are not only talking about just concrete. You are talking about very serious pressure. You are talking about water that is not the normal kind of water you see. So you have to have a kind of concrete mix that will set at the right pace and provide a kind of durability. You need a team of material specialists that will do that. And we have that expertise. We have that capability to do that. Then when you come, and even before you come above the surface of the ground, you find that there are buildings where it's a combination between pile and raft. It's not all the times you have to go as deep. There are times that 10 to 15 meters or even 5 meters before you come out of the surface, the bearing pressure of the ground is relatively stable. So you want to go for mass raft, that's mass concrete. Anytime you produce concrete in mass, it generates very intense heat. So you need to be able to produce concrete that will allow the workers to work in a relaxed manner. The moment you mix concrete and you pour it, it starts to set, and everybody is rushing, panic. That's why mistakes happen on construction sites. You see cracks, you see all sort of lines on patterns on the concrete. But when you understand that you need a couple of hours, you can actually set the setting of the concrete gently for them to be able to work. Then when you come above the surface of the ground, you need the infrastructure to be able to go up to 20 stories, 30 stories. You're talking of the boom to pump the concrete. You're talking of being able to achieve certain types of strengths, very high strengths. For example, the lift shaft, that is the spine of a multi-story building which resists all the wind forces. We are lucky we don't have earthquake. We are at very low earthquake band in this part of the world. But even in countries where earthquake is a problem, it's that spine that you use. So you need very high strength concrete. Also, when you interplay between concrete and reinforcement, if you do a good balance, you realize that you don't need to use too much reinforcement, which reduces the cost of your building. So that's the kind of power we can bring to a multi-story project. And then going to the waste of materials, which I think is a big space. We now have our mortar product. So what happens is when the structural frame has been built, to finish the building, they still bring in a whole lot of materials to site. And we're saying, why don't we change the model? We now have mortar products for your wall screed, internal, external, floor screed, and your tiling. So once you finish your structural frame, you don't need to bring in any material to site, which I think is a fantastic model. That means that the project manager, the contractor, even the client can precisely, accurately monitor what quantity of materials will be used. Also for the safety and health and well-being of the workers on site. Because you reduce the quantity of materials they will carry, you reduce the exposure to materials, and you are able to ensure you have that perfect finish you need. You can't get that with the plaster sand they bring to site, which has red, green, blue, black, and then you mix with cement and all that. So when you combine all those products, we were able to give a multi-story building the kind of aesthetic and power they need to resist lateral forces, horizontal forces, the rain, the wind, and whatever. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing with us the amazing work that Lafarge is doing in terms of ensuring that they add to the construction space safety, bearing safety and sustainability in mind. I'll direct my next question to the MD CEO of Urban Shelter Limited, Sadiu Alia. Let's talk about the model of operation that Urban Shelter has employed to address safety in buildings. So can you hear me? Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me here, and I think I echo the sentiments of panelists to say, Lafarge, this has been really amazingly organized, and it's a privilege to be here. His Excellency and everybody might wish to know I am from Niger State, so I'm one of that 7% that's still building in bungalows, sir. Comfortably. I head Urban Shelter. Urban Shelter is a real estate development company. We are based in Abuja, just to give a quick concept. And we have projects across Lagos, 2 projects in Lagos, sorry, quite a few, 8, 9 in Abuja, 2 in Niger State, and a further 2 in Kaduna State. We are complete advocates of PPPs with governments and agencies. More recently, we are working with Ministry of Housing, actually, allows us also to produce 250 home estate on Abraham Adesanya. This is something that is a wonderful tool to upscale development, especially when the objective of state governments is to ensure kind of affordable housing and numbers of housing for particular sectors of society. With regarding your question on safety, I love Mr. Femi's description. It's almost like he's describing heart surgery. For the layman, average person that looks at a building and thinks it just springs up, it really looks easy. And I think that's why individuals come together with friends and family and say, I am a property developer, I can do this. Meanwhile, he has described something that, as far as we're concerned, and all of us here should say, it's an actual exact science. And it begins also with what Acting Chairman Purple mentioned, which is planning. We have projects staged for 2023, 2024, simply because we have started pre-development from 2021 and 2022. Security is a multidisciplinary issue. It isn't down to one figure. Yes, it can be coordinated by a project team, but it begins from everything from your design. I love that NIA is here. Architects are amazing. They want a complicated building that you can make on a cloud. And as soon as we have a department for architecture, as soon as they do these phenomenal buildings, because I'm almost like a client to them as the MD, I say I need A, B, and C. They say, Sadia, don't worry. And they do something phenomenal. We're all in love with it. And then the engineers kind of start doing this nervously. Their question is, how can we build it? And then the poor architects are looking frowning, but they're then slightly scaling back, because they're then beginning to realize that as phenomenal as their building is, it might be a safety issue. So you then tweak. The engineers then sometimes want to over-provide. You then have a value engineering process. And then COVID and perhaps the changing nature of Nigeria's microeconomy over the last 18, 24 months means even though your QSs make further allowance, you're then actually spending the time to look at every line item to see, again, since we know it's a science, we don't allow for 20% where you end up with wastage, but it's actually more like 5%, which really should be the standard. It's not a one-day process, safety. And I think we should hold ourselves accountable. One, as private sector, the government also, it's a symbiotic relationship that has to work together because it's 2 arms of a body. It can only work so much. Like you said, buildings don't collapse on paper. But my point is, and without excusing the government, even without oversight from all the multiple agencies, as a property developer, I should build safe houses, safe structures. Why? Selfishly, and I'll explain. One, when a building collapses, you kill people. It's not acceptable in any society. You can't walk into a shop and murder somebody. Number 2, it's just bad for business. Who's going to buy an urban shelter property if it fails? Number 3, as the overriding authority, you'll take me to jail. I don't want to go to jail. I'm raising 4 children. So again, when you even remove kind of, oh, I'm doing this because big brother government is on my back, it's bad for business. It's bad for your bottom line. And that's incredibly important to focus on. And of course, project management, oversight, start to finish, ensuring you're meeting timelines throughout once you get past the pre-development process and go into the actual project cycle, and then finally delivery, not cutting corners and all the other obvious.
Thank you very much for stating that very beautifully. I must mention that our online audience has started dropping their questions, so I'll take a few questions from the online audience. If you have questions, now will be the time to drop them. There's a Q&A bar on the top right corner of your screen. Please do well to drop your questions there. And if you have to direct this question to any particular panelist, you can do that as well. I'll direct my next question to Mrs. Olajumoke Akinwumi. Let's talk about how private players in the construction space, material makers, developers, engineers, financiers, etc. can collaborate to design and come up with self-regulation mechanisms that create confidence.
That's an interesting question to ask, because one of the biggest challenges that we have in our industry is that we're very low on collaboration. I was just reading something online a few days ago. I think there is a bill that's in the House at the moment. I had to write it down. It's called the Real Estate Regulation and Development Bill. And that bill is being sponsored via REDAN, which is the Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria. And then developers who are not members of REDAN are very upset because as far as they're concerned, REDAN wants to corner the market and exclude them from the opportunities that will come from maybe government business or, projects with government. That's interesting because the reason for REDAN is actually to try and regulate real estate developers. The barrier to entry for the real estate development sector is very, very low. As a matter of fact, anybody with a small parcel of land, not even direct ownership, can act as a real estate developer. In previous roles that I have played, we've come across people who will come with a scheme for 1,000 homes and haven't even built 10 before. So, and that's one subset. And now the question is asking how there's going to be cross collaboration. But in any case, it's important. But I think that one of the things that would drive or force us to come to the table to collaborate are not things from within. They're actually more external things. And one of the first things is transparency or the lack thereof. So again, looking at some data from JLL, I think they used to be called Jones Lang LaSalle. Every couple of years, they do an index, so real estate transparency index. And Nigeria is always towards the bottom. That transparency index is looking at a number of things, but critical to us is regulatory and legal environment, transaction process, and market fundamentals. Right. Now, more recently, adding to transparency is the issue of digitization and decarbonization. So when we talk decarbonization, is all the issues about green build, and impact on the environment. So it is clear that there's a great link between transparency and how attractive a country's property market is to foreign investment. So the top 10 on that list in the past few years have received 75% of investment in the real estate sector. So we've got to do something. I think at the moment, from the 2020 list, Nigeria sits on, I think we're number 66 or 68 out of 99. For Africa, South Africa is at the top end as number 24. So transparency relates to regulations, it relates to standards and metrics. And we have a building code. How is that used? How is that enforced? There are metrics, forgive the English, for measuring how sustainable a building is. How many of us are submitting our proposals and our projects to that process to achieve a certification? I think that, as I said, will be forced to collaborate because the environment that we're in today, the type of investors are asking very difficult questions that make us responsible to ensure that, in fact, for example, that we bring ESG to the mainstream is no longer a casual conversation. There are investors who are saying that unless we can see the other benefits apart from financial, we're not going to put our money behind your projects. So I would say also the second thing, apart from pressures from investor asking for more, is also technology. Technology is forcing us, whether we like it or not, to become more transparent. And so the mass adoption of technology, the fact that there's more availability of data, a lot of questions or conversations around blockchain technology in real estate, it means real-time data. It means we cannot, hide. Our inability to collaborate is being broken down because of access to information. And those those two things, in my opinion, are the things that will force us to come together to collaborate. I mean, I hear conversations around PPPs. They are great when they work, but we've also seen PPPs that failed terribly just because one party, not both, one party had a position that just was not prepared to make things work. We also find that, and I like what Sadia mentioned about self-regulation. This is our responsibility as practitioners in the industry. It's good to have all of the oversight from government, and actually it is necessary. It's necessary on a number of fronts so that you can see the way we do things and help to correct even the policies that you put in place, but also it is necessary so that you can make examples of things that have not been done well. I think we need an environment where what is done well is praised and what is not done well is punished properly. And that needs to even be public information. At the end of the day, self-regulating is going to happen more because of issues from outside than because of issues from within.
Thank you very much. I like that you say we must learn to praise what is done right and punish what is done wrong. My next question is to Architect Eni Ben Ebo. Now the question is there, whilst we talk about these high-rise buildings, what is the actual possibility of adapting same to the socio-economic realities of low-income Nigerians?
Well, that's a tall order, and I look forward to the day when Nigeria will be able to take care of its infrastructure, and because high-rise buildings oscillate around infrastructure. Infrastructure, not just access, but the services within the building. And you discover that in Nigeria of today, most of the high-rise buildings that are residential are in the highbrow areas of Lagos, and probably Abuja and Port Harcourt, as the case may be. So before we can get to that point where it becomes available to the average Nigerian, that time is still not too close in the foreseeable future. Our building regulations in Nigeria limit the number of floors you can go until you need a lift to about 4 floors. So whatever we're doing for the low-income earners must not go beyond 4 floors. Otherwise, you'll find a situation where people would not want to live in them. I recall what 1004 used to be before UAC took it over. You had people on the 8th floor, there's no water, you have to come down to the ground floor to fetch water and go up the stairs with a bucket of water. And if you come down to your car and forget something in the house, running up 8 floors becomes a nightmare. And it's something that is not what we would like to see. I just want to give an example of what I saw. Last week we were in Rwanda for Chogom, and they took us to a site where they were trying to rehabilitate slums. And the whole concept was to get these slum owners to buy into something that was a little bit more modern. And you discover that they built not more than 4 floors for them, and they used local brick, local building materials that are sustainable. And at the end of the day, it was something that I thought should be emulated by a lot of other countries. Small as it is, it's a solution that I think a lot of African countries should be able to imbibe. At the end of the day, one of the concepts that was signed on to by most of the leaders, or a declaration rather that was signed up by most of the leaders, is sustainable urbanization. Because sustainable urbanization has now become a global phenomenon, whereby they say in the next, I don't know how many years, more than 70% of our inhabitants, people will be in the cities, and these cities have to adapt to the realities that would befall them in the not too distant future. And so a lot of cities are now beginning to look at concepts such as renewable energy, concepts such as sustainability. Like my colleague here said, the construction industry accounts for a very high percentage of CO2 emissions. And these days, when we're talking of ozone layer depletion and all of that, we need to look very seriously at that sector to ensure that this ozone layer depletion is reduced to the barest minimum. But back to your question as to when we'll be able to see this high-rise concept in low-income housing, I think that time is still very far away.
Okay, thank you very much for answering honestly that question. I'll move into the audience where we have Dr. Idris Alako, the Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development. If you can please get a microphone across to him, I'd really appreciate that. I'd like to ask you, sir, in your view, how can physical planning and urban development support the implementation of the Nigeria Building Code?
Yeah, thank you. How can physical planning support the implementation of the National Building Code? You will agree with me that physical planning in Lagos State, most especially in Lagos State, most of our activities have been regulatory based. And the National Building Code, as was done by professionals in the built environment, it's a federal law, let's call it a law. It's a federal law, and all states in the federation were advised to domesticate in their various states. So, as part of the recommendation of the committee set up by the Lagos State government on the Gerrard building collapse, that Lagos State should, as a matter of urgency, domesticate the National Building Code. And that recommendation was accepted by the Lagos State government. And immediately, Mr. Governor Babajide Shola approved the domestication of the Lagos Building Code. And I can tell you, as we are here, we've started the process of domesticating that building code in the states. And one of the primary purpose, taking into consideration the peculiarities of Lagos State, is to look at our existing regulatory framework and those shortcomings in those regulatory frameworks. We believe the building code, National Building Code, when domesticated in Lagos State, will help deal with some of those issues that has to do with performance-based issues that are lacking in the planning regulations that we are using. That one, the regulation was based on standards. We have specific standards, and that those things you need to conform to for you to build anywhere in Lagos State. But and from some of the discussions here, those are the issues that have been highlighted. We are not looking at the performance of those structures that are going up. If you are putting in a lift, like the architect just said now, when are we getting to areas like Igondo? And if you get to Igondo and you are putting a lift, we know we have power issues, we have other issues to be put in place. Fire as an issue, fire is an issue. The stability of the structure itself, durability of those structures, those are things the building code will help us address. So it's more about the performances of those structures that is going up rather than the standards that we've already set that all of us are used to, which developers are very, very apt in compromising. So when you have even compromised the standards and you feel you get away with it, when we need to look at the performance of that structure you are putting in place. Is the building even habitable at the end of the day? And that's where the issue of certification comes in. When you are through with your building, you are supposed to apply to LAPCA again, because LASPA will give you a form C5, right? A form to fill, which your engineers, architects, every professional that has worked on that project must certify and sign off. And it is based on this, LAPCA will issue a certificate of fitness and habitation for you to be able to inhabit that property. And Lagos State government has also been collaborating with some other agencies like EDGE and to bring into our regulatory framework green building initiatives which we have been working, and we believe at the end of the day, this will also be inculcated in the building code when it's eventually passed through the House of Assembly. So this will enhance what we do, and we check some of those structures that are coming up. And we are going vertical. So many issues that has been dealt with here needs to be taken into consideration. And we are all aware that the regulatory framework as it is may not be enough to deal with those issues of high-rise building in the states. But with the National Building Code, when eventually domesticated in Lagos State, it will help us check those issues that we need to deal with going forward.
Thank you very much, sir. You've raised some very important points. You know, the code as it is cannot cater to every foreseeable problem that will come with building up. So we must definitely look into that. And we're looking forward to it passing the House of Assembly. I'd ask my next question, please, we still need a mic in front, to Architect Bolahon Oki, who is the General Manager, Lagos State Building Control Agency. Thank you very much, sir. Please take the mic to him. Thank you. Let's talk about the measure that the Lagos State Building Control, Agency is taking to verify the status of, you know, its members, and can this help to easily identify non-professionals and reduce the delay in project implementation?
Thank you very much. Well, when you're talking about members, are you talking about staff of Lagos State, or are you talking about professionals practicing the construction itself?
We're referring to the professionals, the ones who are practicing construction.
Okay, like the Honorable Commissioner said, that there is a particular form that is given to you upon getting an approval from Lagos State Planning Permit. It is called the Form C. In this Form C, it holds on you that you have all the key professionals to move, that they are supposed to sign this particular form. Then you have the architect, the builder, electrical engineer, structural engineer. These are the core professionals that are in the build environment. So once you are on site and on the day-to-day activities of the professionals on site, they sign and attest to the construction work. And it is on these that the building control will work on the certificate of fitness, because no matter the amount of floors that you partake or you do on the site, everything will be checked according to the instruction given by the professionals. Then we are talking about where there is need for you to do soil tests to be sure of the strength of the material in a situation whereby the professional is not on site and there is a form of a doubt in whatever that happens to go on. But definitely there is a normal test that is run on every floors and columns. So once you have that, the engineers are going to fill that form. Is that form and the pictures of stage-to-stage construction process that the building control will use to give the certificate of fitness, which means that all the necessary procedure in relation to the building process has been followed. So with that, we have the certificate of fitness given, and that can only be given to professionals. And you know that all professionals do have the membership. So there is this aspect of the planning aspect that is the Lagos State Planning Permit used to ask. Once you are doing a design, you need to stamp and seal with your ACON stamp and the Nigerian Institute of Architects. Once you are a professional, there are procedures that you go through from the planning approval to the construction process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We still have another question for you, sir. Let's talk about regulation and planning powers. You foresee that there are tools to ensure the only well-capitalized and reputable developers can participate in redeveloping houses in most parts of Lagos Island, where incidences of building collapse seem to be more common?
Yes, definitely. But there's something that we are not really looking at. Everybody seated here, we are all professional one way or the other. What happened to the people that are joining this particular outfit without any form of identification? Then this is where the attitude comes in. When we are talking about building up safely, it's not about the professionals alone. We have the individuals. We have the member of the public. The government has done the needful by providing all the agencies to do the checks and balances, which Lagos State Building Control have to be one of them. But what of us, the people living around? I'll give you an example. I was on the island about 2-3 weeks ago, and there happens to be a building collapse. This is an environment that, plus or minus, you have over 50 to 100 people within that compound alone. And this is a construction that started plus or minus about 2-3 months. They started the foundation, the first floor, second floor, third floor. An incident occurred. None of the people within the environment were ready to give an information about who the contractor was. Even the carpenter, even the iron bender. And why are we our brother's keeper? What we were taught when we were growing up is if you do anything from 3 streets before, you'll be dealt with and you'll be asked to go and report at home. So what now happens when you now get to the house and you cannot even identify the actual cause of the problem? So what we are talking about is not even all about the government. The attitude problem of we, like I'll say, is the turn of the public to fill in the gap. That it's not about the government alone, it's about you and I. Somebody is building. What is the setback that the person is supposed to have? Is the person having it? And when the government official happens to come down to that site, what are the public reaction to the government officials? Harassing them, and you expect those government officials to come. Must we always come with force to tell you to do the right thing? So it's the turn of the public to face the fact. Public gongon lokon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We all have a role. It's a collective responsibility. We have a role to play. We can all agree that there are many buildings we've seen that have been marked for demolition, in different parts of Lagos, but we don't see that the residents are willing to move because you've been informed that this property is not safe. It's not safe, but we want you to move, but we see a resistance. So you've appropriately, you've mentioned how exactly individuals, how important it is for the public to be a part of this. Very, very quickly, please run us through some of the ways in which we, the members of the public, can contribute. How can we hold these developers in our communities accountable? How can we look out for, each other?
Thank you very much. Let me start this way. We went to a site and we asked the people living in the property to move out. And you'll be shocked at the statement that the people are making. We know that the building will come down, but we don't have money, we don't have where to go. Okay. Now the government is telling you that you need to move out compulsorily. I now see the same people fighting and saying that, no, you can't do that. And when the building now comes down, the first person they will be talking about is government. And we now say, please, for the sake of life, life is more important than the billion that you are going to make. Because you cannot buy a single soul for 600 trillion. And when the building is coming down, it's not going to tell you I'm coming down after Ileya or I'll wait till end of Christmas. It's just going to come down just on a straight flight. And what we are saying is once you notice any building, cracks, just tell somebody to tell somebody, and the information will get to the government. And by so doing, you will help the government to be proactive. And that is why we decided to take the bull by the horn in the last couple of months, that we go down to the key places, the water area that we know that they are extremely very prone to collapse. That is Ebute Metta. I'll tell you comfortably, but as of today, we've done about 20 that we have removed. And the people within the environment are really very happy. And they are even calling us now to tell us Only that we just have to be careful about the other side of the story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure there are more questions. I'm seeing some questions coming in online for people are asking questions about demolition. We'll take a few questions, but I'll move my next question before I come back to the panelists. Once again, I'd like to ask Dr. Idris Alako my next question. With the recent amendments to the State Urban and Regional Planning and Development Law to enforce certification of high-rise buildings as a way of curbing perennial building collapse, how has this contributed to the improvement of building safety in Lagos State?
Thank you. I want to say it has contributed tremendously, and it has helped us manage many of the buildings coming up in the state. The Lagos State Urban and Regional Planning and Development Law 2019 as amended gave LAPCA, the Building Control Agency, powers to monitor developments of structures going up in the states. And like the representative of the General Manager LASPA said, when you get your planning permit from LASPA, you approach LAPCA, and LAPCA authorizes that construction work to go on. You will be given a letter. And with that letter signifies that you are permitted to do that construction activities on that site. And from the foundation level, they monitor every stage of development till you get to the final stage. So with that, we've been able to monitor several buildings, most of the structures going on in the states, and we've been able to advise where necessary. We have sealed up properties where necessary, and we have corrected many developers. And what comes out of this in most cases is the use of professionals, right professionals to do your construction activities in the state. And before now, we found out that if you are Baba, you've gone through some tutelage growing up, you feel you can do 5 floors, 10 floors in the States. But with the law, we've been able to make sure it's only certified professionals that works on building construction in the States. And in most cases, we do arrest when we find out that the supervising engineer or the architect in charge of that project are not on site. We do arrest them. And this has reduced the incidence of quackery in the building construction process. So with this, with the certification stages, our officers are always there. You call them and they come there and they do every stage and they advise you on every stage until you get to the final development. And in the recent, it has helped development activities and is helping to reduce the incidence of building collapse in the states.
All right, thank you very much, sir. We look forward to seeing more reduction in those numbers to the point that maybe the day will come we'll never see a building collapse. We look forward to that. Thank you very much. We'll come back to the panel with me on the stage here, and I'll address my next question to Sadia Aliyu. And the question is, what innovative building products or techniques could better meet the objectives of cost efficiency and safety?
Thank you very much. I need to answer carefully because I'm at Lafarge and you do cement. But one of the colleagues has mentioned bricks already. At the very tail end of how we produce properties at Urban Shelter, in particular the affordable range, we use burnt red bricks. It can be used as a structural element. It doesn't need further finishes. It has a lot of climate control features, but for the end user actually allows a lot of sustainability and affordability. You're not having to put a lot of, AC air conditionings on and so on and so forth. And again, I'll go back to planning. So when we're doing our affordable range, everything from location, accessibility to general infrastructure is very important. When you're constructing a house and trying to make sure it's affordable, infrastructure can account for anything between 15 to 30% of the actual overall cost. Looking at meteorological wind factors so that you know where to place windows, how to orientate houses, where the wind flows, and so on is incredibly important. Sizes of windows and so on and so forth. So there are a multitude of small things you could do to add value and to ensure that that affordability is possible. Now, I want to say that it was a targeted thing, but purely by accident. By trying to create something affordable, you actually end up with something sustainable as well. So you kind of end up killing two birds with one stone. It gets a bit more complicated as our tastes become more sophisticated, and we hear words along the lines of, they're doing skyscrapers in Europe, come and do it here. Not necessarily. It may well not be the most affordable way to approach affordability, as it were, in Nigeria. And again, depending on where you are in Nigeria, you have to consider different construction models. So it's not super high tech. My answer isn't that we have a 3D printer. We're keeping an eye on it. We have a small R&D unit at part of Urban Shelter. We've been looking at it from about 2018. There's a lot happening in South America with 3D printers. We were speaking with Mr. Femi earlier about that. We still think, because there are over 200 million Nigerians, significant of those are youth. I can still pretend I am a youth, and there's significant unemployment. We want to assume that for now, we would rather still employ more people to build houses than to come and drop foreign technology and see how it works in Nigeria, just to produce significant numbers. And again, the other side is if you end up producing thousands by 3D printer, meanwhile, I don't believe there are thousands of Nigerians that can afford to buy houses at that end now, because we don't have the financial tools created for them. For instance, your question earlier about the undocumented in terms of informal economy, which represents far, far greater than the formal economy. Those typically will be people that would like to buy something along those lines.
Thank you very much. We have a few more questions before we head over to the question and answer segment. I'd like to direct my next question to Mrs. Olubusola Olatunji. We're going to be asking you to tell us about the work that the Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority is doing, or how is it working towards actualizing the details in the master plan, as well as the challenges that you face?
Okay, thank you. We all know that the master plan is a policy document that shows us the conceptual layout of how development and growth is supposed to go in for the future of a planning area. Now, in Lagos State, we have different categories of plans, operative development plans, which the master plan is just one of. We have the regional plans that cut across the whole of the state. We have the sub-regional plans that has to do with different sub-regions. And then we have the master and the model city plans. Then all of these ones are just broad layout plans, conceptual plans. So what the Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority is doing is to develop lower order plans from these broad plans that will speak to plot by plot basis of a planning area. Now, once a lower order plan, like an action area plan as prescribed in the master plan, is designed by the authority, or an excised village, a development guide plan is designed for the excised village, an excised village. What we normally do afterwards is to prepare approval orders that will tell us what each plot of land will have the capacity of carrying, what it can be used for, and then how high it can be developed, how the buildable areas there, and then the setback and airspaces that are going to be observed by anybody that wants to build on such lands. So, since last year, we were able to, provide 32 lower order plans cut across the state. So we now have charting tools that can be used during planning process. When applications are brought in by developers, we can chart those with those plans. We can use them to chart and decide, okay, these are the things that we can do with this plot of land. Okay, this is the zoning, this is the permissible use, this is density that it can accommodate. Now, one of the challenges that we have two types of challenges anyway. We have the internal ones and then the external ones. The internal ones borders on funding of preparation of these operative development plans, these low order plans, and then the manpower may not be really readily available, because most of our district offices, we have just about 3 or 4 officers manning each district office. They are the ones that will do the planning permit and then carry out the development plans too. So they are short-staffed there. So those ones are internal. But the ones that really bothers us is much of the external ones that concerns recalcitrant developers that will just go into sites without even obtaining planning permits and then start building and then going against the provisions of the operative development plans of the state. Now, some will not even bother to have planning permits. And then we have others that will have planning permits, but will just deviate from what has been approved. Now, the things that we are now doing is to ensure that we have various reforms. We have the sensitization of the public. We did a stakeholders engagement about 3 weeks back, and the gospel we were preaching was on voluntary compliance. We want people to voluntarily comply to the provisions of the planning permit, because it is when we comply with this planning permit that have been approved that we can ensure the sustainability of the environment for you and I, and then for the future generation that are coming in. Now, let me go back to what architect Bolan Oki said, that when they go to site and they ask questions, people are afraid of giving information. I think one of the problems people are having is they are not too sure of if they can really trust the government enough to release such information. They are afraid of their own personal safety. But we are preaching the gospel of see something, say something. You know, I happen to man the platform of the agency, the authority, that's Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority. And then I see people sending in emails. Their identities are protected. All we need for them is the information that has to do with what is happening in their environment. And then when we get that, we address such issues. And we have solutions at hand. And that is what we are looking forward to from the public. Then we have reforms. We know that many of the developers are actually thinking about the economic value of time. And then they want to have a situation whereby they can, okay, even if they are going to bring in a planning permit application, they want it to come out fast as at now, speedy processing. And so what we have done, we have reviewed our standard operational procedure. Initially, when I joined the service, we had Operation 30-30. I know some of us will have heard about that. That's 30 working days, between 30 calendar days and 30 working days, you get your planning permit out. But after a while, we reviewed it to 18 days. Now we have, tried to remove some of those things that can lead to clog in the processing of planning permits. And so we have reduced it to 10 working days. Once you have done a pre-planning permit, once you have done the pre-screening of your documents, you are assured that in 10 days maximum, you can get your planning permit out.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yes.
So we've reduced it from 30 days to 10 days.
18, then to 10 days.
Beautiful.
Then we have also intensified enforcement. We go out on a regular basis now to ensure that, okay, at least we will know when something is happening. We have now broken down our monitoring and compliance unit into 5 divisions of the state. So they can go out simultaneously. One will go to Ikeja division, then Badagry division. They just go out like that, and they're monitoring the happenings in the environment to ensure that, okay, what people are doing is actually in compliance with what has been approved. Now, you can imagine a picture of, let's just assume that every development in the state has a planning permit that is tailored to what has been, prepared in the master plan or any of the operative development plans. Now, if every one of them have like that, or any ongoing development also have, that means everything that we have in the state will be tailored to what the master plan or the model city plan or any of the operative development plans is prescribing. And then we are sure that our environment is tailored towards sustainability, and then it can last us longer and we can lengthen the lifespan of the environment.
Thank you so much for sharing with us the work that you're doing. And the beautiful thing about Concrete Ideas is the government is listening. The private sector is listening, and we know that the key recommendations taken from here will be implemented in day-to-day policy making. Now, it's time for us to take questions from the audience. Our audience have dropped questions, and I'll be starting off. The first question will go to Engineer Aramide Adeoye. But before I ask her that question, we have to specially recognize the presence of the immediate past president of the Nigerian Institute of Building Collapse Guild, BCPG, Builder Kunle Awobodu, and information reaching me is that it is officially his 60th birthday. Am I correct? Is he around here? We have information that it's your 60th birthday. Can we please put our hands together for him and say happy birthday on behalf of Lafarge PLC? Our distinguished panelists, our distinguished guests, would like to say happy birthday. Can we all together say happy birthday?
Happy birthday.
All right, thank you very much. And at this moment, may we all please rise as the Deputy Governor of Lagos State takes his leave. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Governor, sir. Oh, thank you very much, sir. We want to take questions from the audience, which is why we have to continue. Thank you very much, sir. All right. So we have a few questions from the audience that we're just going to take before we call it a wrap. And my first question will go to Engineer Aramide Adeoye. Now, someone from the audience has asked, what is the state government's plan and or efforts to encourage the springing up of vertical buildings in areas like Igondo, Egon, Ikotu, and the likes, as the Deputy Governor mentioned earlier? I think it's closely related to what architect had said.
It is close, but one of the things that I say is this. Accessibility is a major factor to encourage a real estate developer to say, I want to go into an area. And so one of the things that we do as a government, particularly in my ministry, is to say, where are the major arterials? Once you can open up major arterials, you let your infrastructure speak to the model city plans. So if I look at the real estate provision that a developer is looking at, you then look at what is the connectivity. And so as a government, if I see that in the Lekki corridor, it looks like everywhere is built up, but beyond this limit, there is nowhere to build again. So what exactly can you do to open up avalanche of land? So we look at what kind of provision of infrastructure can we do. So for the Lagos State Ministry of Works, it's our business to build the infrastructure of the roads. In Lekki corridor, you say, the only place where you have land available is likely to be Omu, beyond. Because the reason why people have stopped building is because there is actually a river that cuts across. But the moment you can provide that bridge, open up that expanse of land, you can get the private sector, collaborate, you can do real sites and services scheme. So when you go to Ikorodu, you say, once I get to Ibeshe end, and I can build this road or something to open up this area, the place becomes available for the real estate. So for Ikotu-Igondo, where right now we're building the Egon Bridge, we're doing, one of the things as a ministry that we do is we also think to say, in terms of, Mr. Governor, Deputy Governor said it rightly, you can never outbuild the roads, you can never build enough to last Lagosians. So what do you then do? Make sure you have an intermodal transport system. So the kind of infrastructure that you are doing actually speaks to that intermodal connectivity. So the roads that you will select that you want to do are roads that will lead to jetties. The Minister of Housing, if they're building houses in Ikorodu, people will wonder, why do you want to go and live in Ikorodu? You can live there because our intermodal transport system now works. So there's a jetty in Ibeshe, there's a jetty in Ikorodu, there's a road that you have done along Shekumade that will take you to the jetty. So it becomes easier for people to even live in far ends of Lagos, and you can connect to exactly where you're going. Where I think our developers need to think, and I would sound this out now to say, is a second wave of urban regeneration that is taking place in Lagos Island. The private sector needs to take advantage of this. But what we need to do differently is they should stop thinking more about the profit maximization. They need to look at the CBAs, the cost-benefit analysis. What kind of models have they done before? Why are people resistant to the change? As a government, we tried on Isale Gongon. We've done Isale Gongon. We've done some resettlement action plan to say, okay, if we take this land from you, we'll give you this. But yet, there's still some missing things. That's where the private sector needs to come up to say, what can we do differently? What kind of advocacy can we do that people would say, I want to even live beyond the emotional attachment? this is my family house in Lagos Island. This is this. Beyond that, this land is vast real estate land, expanse of land waiting to be developed. What can we do to the next generation to make it better? Squalor, we cannot continue like this and live in squalor. Those are land around Lagos Island is not where you have plank markets, you have people selling. This is real prime land. But we can encourage the people to voluntarily say, we'll give up this, when they see that the conditions are really ripe and the resettlement action plan that we have for them is right. So that's my challenge to the private sector in terms even of participation. It goes beyond just providing the money, but actually getting the people to voluntarily give up and say, this is how we must go.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So our next question, I'm wondering who this question would be between. If it's going to be between either Mrs. Olubusola Olatunji or the Honorable Commissioner to answer this. But the question says, how can we ensure that lands are genuine to avoid future demolitions? How can we ensure that lands are genuine to avoid future demolitions?
I think that question is not really clear. But what we advise people in the ministry is that even before you take up a land space, apply or approach the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development to know what you can actually use your land for. So we have what we call planning information, and it's free. You are not going to pay. All you need to do is write a letter to the Honorable Commissioner and attach a copy of the survey plan. So we will look at our operative development plan and advise you appropriately. So when we do that, you know what you can use your site for. And like Bisola said, and the Lafarge GM also said, when you build right. And when you build right, there will be no need to demolish or remove your property. So people, because of, they want to cut corners, they want to, like she said, some of them are on bank loans, we know. And we also want them to achieve their project management objectives early enough. So that's why we're reducing the timing for the approvers. So they want to cut corners and they want to build according to their own financial whatever they are looking at. They want to maximize their profit. Somebody applies for a 3-floor residential and you are going 5 floors. We have options for you to rectify and regularize that process. But if you are not regularizing appropriately, there may be reasons for us to pull it down. You see, if we really want to achieve sustainability in the states, and we really want to tell ourselves the real fact as it is, if we are really sincere, whatever is illegal in the state is illegal. Mm-hmm. And it's not supposed to stand. But we want to rationalize it. For whatever reasons, it could be political, it could be financially induced, it could be sentiments and emotions. Like the Deputy Governor said earlier today, it's not even 3 structures, it's 5 structures in the heart of Banana Island over the weekend. Since last year, we've told this developer what you are doing is wrong. And we have a feeling that this structure will come down anytime. Continued working from maybe 4th, 2nd floor till you got to the 4th floor. And we had to seal the property and stop him from working. Eventually, we had to bring it down. Because for us to save lives and also enhance livability and have a sustainable state to live in, that type of structure is not supposed to stand. And it's even standing by the water, by the lagoon. So if that one comes in, everybody will say government has not done its regulatory function properly. So our advice is whatever is not right is not right. So let us stop rationalizing it in whatever form or ramification. So anything that is not in tandem with the operative development plan of that area should not stay, should not stand. And that's why LAPCA is there. So if you want to build anything, approach the ministry will advise you. And when we tell you this is what you can do, you can only go 7 floors, it is 7 floors. Don't come back and say, can I go 10 floors? And they give you 7 floors and you see them constructing 10 floors. On a good day, we should remove those 3 floors at the top of that 7 floors. So what do we do? So the advice is people should please adhere to the operative development plans.
Thank you very much, sir. Can we please put our hands together for our panelists and our audience? Thank you very much for being a part of the conversation. There have been so many, highlights that we can pick from this conversation. Aside the fact that we're talking about government-industry collaborations, we as citizens have a role to play. We must be our own brother's keeper. When we see buildings that are not, fit for purpose, buildings that are cracking or collapsing, we must make the necessary reports. And also one thing that stands out for me in today's conversation is how we have highlighted the importance of green building. Sustainability is at the core of, what we're thinking about as we're building up. How sustainable is this building? How safe is this building? How green is this building? Which is why I'm excited to be doing this with Lafarge, because Lafarge thinks of sustainability at the core of its strategy. So thank you very much to our panelists. Once again, can we please put our hands together for them? And to wrap this conversation up nicely, I'd like to welcome, can we please put our hands together as welcome the CEO of Lafarge PLC, Khalid El-Dukani, as he comes forward to share his final thoughts on this. And right after that, we'll have the photo session.
Thank you so much, Olive, and thank you so much, our dear panelists. And I cannot thank you enough for the contribution, the participation, and the visionary look for our society and how to get it better. I don't want to take too much time of our guests. And as Lafarge Africa PLC, we position ourselves as a community player, not only a cement producer, or a company that is here to sell cement and make money. We've been in the country for the last 60 years, 61 years now. As Wholesome, we are #1 in the building materials. Our view of the construction and the sustainability is mainly driven by the improvement of the planet and the health of the people. And we are committed to that. Today's, we have discussed many ideas. A lot of them is what we have been doing in so many other countries before that. So we have the experience, we have the knowledge, we have the expertise really to support the initiatives and the progress of these ideas. I love the discussion about the sustainability. I love the discussion about the environment, the demolished materials and the recycling. All of these elements, as Lafarge Africa, as part of being a member of Wholesome Group, we have a lot of knowledge about it. We have done it in so many areas. I think we can contribute towards really progressing on this. On the regulation side, I appreciate very much the openness and the transparency and the positive attitude that it's not only one party's problem, rather than it's a collective issue that we have all to work together in a teamwork, really to get it progressing and developing. My last point is, I would always prefer to use the digital philosophy as a concept of looking at our construction segment. Because if we sit 20 years back and look at the digitalization revolution that took place, and we talked about it as much 20 years ago, it would have been very difficult to progress. I think on the construction segment, we need to apply. I know we come back with a legacy, with infrastructure, with a lot of inherited problems, but probably what we need to do is to put the solutions in front of the problems. We talk a lot about problems. Probably it's the right time to identify these problems, define the solutions, and start taking it forward. So it's not a blocker rather than an enabler for us to go forward. I want to thank you all again, much appreciated. Lafarge Africa PLC is always proud to have this selective brains and expertise in our panels, and we look forward to our coming concrete ideas. Thank you so much. And thanks to everybody on the air as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we wrap up, we'd like to urge you to please continue the conversation on social media. It doesn't end here. Our pages are at Lafarge PLC on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. This is streamed live on YouTube. So for those who aren't here, you can share the link to them as well. And if anything stood out for you, you can tweet it using the hashtag Lafarge Concrete Ideas 5. That's our hashtag, Concrete Ideas 5. Let's keep talking about it. We won't talk about it once and expect that automatically there will be a change. We will continue this conversation on social media. Thank you once again to our panelists. We'd like to have you please stand up for photographs as I officially hand over to our compere, Temi Badru. And as we have the photographs, as we're about to take the photographs, I would like to please invite the commissioner to join us on stage as well for the photographs. Please, let's put our hands together as welcome Dr. Idris Alaka, the Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development. And I'd also like Architect Bolaho Owoduni Oki to join us on stage as well for photographs. Thank you very much, sir. The powers that be have informed me that we still have engineer who has to join us on stage. Engineer, please, would like you to grace us with your presence on stage. Thank you very much, sir. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is how we officially wrap up Concrete Ideas 5.0 panel session, but the event is not over. Once again, can we please put our hands together for these distinguished thought leaders and people who are the ones who are making the impact in this sector. I'll hand over officially to Temi Badru, who is our compere for today. Thank you very much. My name is Olive Emodi, and it has been an honor doing this. Have a wonderful day.
Done. Please let's give a round of applause to the panelists and to the moderator as well. Ladies and gentlemen, you agree with me that it's been an insightful conversation. We've had so much, we've learned so much, and it's really been a great discussion so far. Please, for our guests who are joining us physically, we don't want you to leave without having a taste of our hospitality. So right here on the left, lunch will be served. So please don't be in a hurry to leave. We'd like you to have a taste of our hospitality before you go. Thank you so much. Again, just to remind us, as Olive mentioned, that conversation continues on social media. The hashtag to use is hashtag Lafarge Africa and hashtag Concrete Ideas 5. Again, the hashtag to use is hashtag Concrete Ideas 5 and hashtag Lafarge Africa. Conversations continue on social media, and don't forget to tag us at Lafarge Africa on social media as well. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I see that networking has commenced and it's continued. Just to remind you that when you take a picture, don't forget to tag us. When you write your learnings, don't forget to tag us as well on Lafarge social media pages across all of them. Also, for our virtual audience, right on your screen, you have opportunities to take a quick poll, because as the popular saying goes, feedback is the breakfast of champions. So right on your screen, you have the opportunity to take a quick poll and tell us your thoughts about this event. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I ask that we please have our seats as we wrap up this event. I'm honored to bring up for the vote of thanks the Head of Corporate Communications at Lafarge Africa, Ginika Frank Durogbo. Please let's give her a round of applause as she comes up for the vote of thanks. May I ask that we please take our seat as we have the vote of thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Temi. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and privilege now to give a vote of thanks to all who made this event possible and a success. On behalf of the entire management and staff of Lafarge Africa PLC, I would like to extend our deepest appreciation to our special guest of honor, the Executive Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, ably represented by the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Dr. Femi Hamzat. We thank him most sincerely for sharing powerful insights and policy ideas that will help to shape the construction and housing sectors. My most sincere appreciation goes to our CEO, Khalid El-Dokani, for his remarkable support and leadership, and to all members of Lafarge ESCO and the entire team at Lafarge Africa. I would also like to especially thank our esteemed thought leaders for being with us today and sharing insightful recommendations that are critical to the growth of the build sector in Nigeria. And to our esteemed guests in the audience and online, thank you for presenting your valuable views and for your active participation and keen interest in concrete ideas and Lafarge Africa. And to every member of the committee that worked tirelessly to ensure the success of today's event, thank you very much. We have now come to the end of the session. I do hope you found it insightful, informative, and engaging. Thank you all once again. We look forward to us gathering again for Concrete Ideas 6.0, where we'll take the conversation further to address issues in the build sector. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
ọ̀kadà nígbà tí pẹ́ntì yẹn wà ara yìí ṣiṣẹ́. In fact ó wà fẹ́ ti wá gan o.
àrùn jẹjẹ àríwọ̀kan jẹ aṣáàdúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run pé Ọlọ́run ò jẹ́ kó wà fẹ́ ti ẹ̀mí wa.
Partnership between State, Lafarge PLC, and Unilever PLC. While Lafarge PLC took charge of the cost of the construction of the building, Unilever PLC picked up the bill for equipping this facility with all that is necessary for the care of those who may be using it. On behalf of the government and the people of the state, I wish to thank Lafarge PLC and Unilever PLC.
Once again, we have taken the bull by the horn, and I dare say, in time to address a global health issue that is threatening to sink our very existence. Today, we are commissioning an 80-bed isolation center here in Ogun State as part of our response and contribution aimed at supporting the efforts of the government to control and manage the spread of the coronavirus amongst our people. The project is an outcome of a partnership with one of Africa's largest building solutions conglomerates, Lafarge Africa PLC.
The new 80-bed facility in this isolation center will enhance the capacity to isolate and treat new cases of the new coronavirus infection and COVID-19. This is a strong strike to the pandemic because it contributes to the objective of breaking the chain of local transmission of the virus limiting infection. This new isolation center takes us nearer to the goal of eliminating the coronavirus. It will assist our economy to enter a post-pandemic phase fully, thus boosting investment, productivity, and job creation.
Health and safety is a core value for Lafarge Africa PLC. And so in everything that we do, really, this is integrated. And just like we care for our employees and all the stakeholders within the areas where we operate, we're also very particular about our relationship with the government and the sort of impact that we can make on the communities where we operate.
We got ambulances from Lafarge, we got food and hygiene products from Unilever, and they did not stop that support at that stage. I want to really extend my appreciation to the management of Unilever and Lafarge.
The launch of this center is significant to us because it's a demonstration of how we are committed to building resilient communities. It also shows our demonstration to corporate citizenship as a good corporate citizen of Ogun State and Nigeria as a whole.
Because of the sustainability initiatives that we do, we've been working across the country in working with different states governments to help beef up the development in the healthcare delivery system.
We wanted to support the government of Ogun State in making sure that they had a facility that could take care of people who had COVID and as well take care of other types of ailments. And so this facility has a lot of purpose-built equipment in there. The CT scans, dialysis machine, a PCR machine for tests. And we increased the capacity of the hospital by twice its size by providing this 80-bed isolation center.
Unilever has a purpose to make sustainable living commonplace. We have been doing this for a while, and we invest in various activities and programs and initiatives to help make people and the planet a better place. So in partnership with Lafarge, we had reached out to the Ogun State government and we had put the isolation center in place.
Lafarge Africa, we're a member of the Wholesome Group, the world's leader in innovative and sustainable building solutions, and our focus is on building progress for people and the planet.
We are here to thank you for giving us back all those things that you have gained for us.
Today is a remarkable day for Ado-Ota local government and Ogun State in general. I want to say thank you.
By establishing this 80-bed isolation center, we are more than grateful, sir.
For us as Lafarge, and what I see here today is another walking the talk. It all falls under the same umbrella for us, is how truly we are committed to our people, to our communities, to our environment, to our stakeholders.
For us in Lafarge Africa PLC, innovation is at the core of our strategy. It transcends all that we do. We have fully embraced innovation, not just as a concept, but as a way of life. So we're not just only selling product, we are selling a solution. So for us, it is to build a world that is greener, smarter, and that works for all. We've just launched LNG trucks. What this would do, it would reduce
pollution, it will reduce carbon emission, it would take out costs, so maintenance costs would be reduced.
The real goal behind the ideation was to deliver something that basically reduced our emission significantly. But as procurement and logistics people, obviously, we also look at cost and we look at efficiency as well. It was critical to get the right partner to flow with so as to ensure the sustainability of the project.
So this initiative came out of the fact that we want to reduce our CO2 emissions when we transport our goods. If you look at the number of trucks that we started injecting, of course, this will help to further deliver our products to our end users, of course, in a sustainable and green manner. So for sure, from a business growth, we are increasing our capacity to deliver to our customers. This is the beginning, right, for us in this journey to green and transporting sustainably.
It is extremely impactful because with this technology, it is something that is quite available in most of the countries. So we are not awaiting a technology that is still under development, especially if we talk about hydrogen. So at industrial scales, that's trucks that can be quite easily provided. The second thing is that when you need to fill those trucks, it doesn't require a high level of infrastructures implemented in the country.
Ecologic is partnering with Lafarge to reduce carbon emissions in the supply chain and ultimately improve the quality of life where Lafarge operates.